Here.
Verhaelen.
Here.
Alderman Toman is excused. Alderman Gale.
Here.
Guzekowski.
Here.
Just a quick announcement from Alderman Toman. This is explain my absence. At 2 p.m. today, my daughter blessed us with a new granddaughter. Mom and baby are doing great. While missing a meeting is not my style, I hope everyone understands that this is a day which I chose to be with my family. So, good news for the Toman family. Pledge of Allegiance led by School Board President Frank Creaney. Where is he at? Come on up. It's a tribute to Dick Bolander. He used to do this all the time. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. Item 3 is approval of the minutes of May 17, 2016.
Kirkowski make a motion to approve the minutes of May 17, 2016.
Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right, we have a ton of recognition proclamations, so I'm not going to read them. I can guarantee you that I will talk to all of these people individually and thank them for the great service that they provided the city. Most of these people are volunteers, and a lot of them have served for a long time. So we appreciate their willingness to step up for the community and do the jobs that they frankly don't have to do. And so I love the fact that they've done that. So item 4 is a consideration of council proclamation number 1607 to Sharon Armstrong for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Celebrations Commission. Just need a motion.
Bill will move to approve Council Proclamation 16-07 to Sharon Armstrong for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Celebrations Committee.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Item 5 is a consideration of council proclamation number 16-08 to Christopher J. Holly for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Celebrations Commission. Motion.
Bekavich will make a motion to adopt proclamation number 1608 to Christopher J. Holly for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Celebrations Commission.
Seconds.
Verhaelen seconds. Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Item 6 is a consideration of council proclamation number 16-09 to Thomas Lewison for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Board of Review and Board of Zoning Housing Administration. Motion.
Gail will move to approve Council Proclamation 16-09 to Thomas Lewison for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Board of Review and Board of Zoning Housing Administration.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Item 7 is a consideration of council proclamation number 16-10 to Sally Gillespie for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Celebrations Commission. Motion.
Bekavich will make a motion to adopt proclamation number 1610 to Sally Gillespie for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Celebrations Commission.
Verhaelen second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 8 is a consideration of council proclamation number 16-11 to Marta E. Weinrich for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Board of Zoning Housing Administration. Motion.
Gail will move to approve Council Proclamation 16-11 to Marta E. Weinrich for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Board of Zoning Housing Administration.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Strike item 9. It's actually, Melissa's going to continue on her fine service on the Board of Zoning and Housing Administration, so strike 9. We'll move to 10, which is consideration of council proclamation number 16-13 to Nicole Druckery for dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Community Development Authority. Motion.
Gail will move to approve Council Proclamation 16-13 to Nicole Druckery for the dedicated service to the city of Oak Creek as a member of the Community Development Authority.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Is that the last one? Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I will personally reach out to all those folks and thank them for their service. And again, it's much appreciated. So moving on to public hearing section of the meeting. Number 11 is a consideration of a request to amend section 17.0316 of the municipal code, which would create the B6 interchange regional retail zoning district. The city clerk will read the public hearing notice.
Public hearing number 1 is to consider consider a proposed amendment to section 17.0316 of the municipal code, which would create the B6 Interchange Regional Retail Zoning District. Date of notice is May 4th, 2016.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Doug Seymour. I am the Director of Community Development for the City of Oak Creek. And this is a public hearing on a request to create Section 170316 of the zoning code to create a new B6 Interchange Regional Retail Zoning District. And first, let me apologize if my voice goes out. It's been kind of going in and out all day today, so we'll go as long as we can tonight. The city's existing zoning code, which is Chapter 17, regulates commercial zoning districts in a variety of different districts, B1 being local business, B2 neighborhood business, B3 office and professional business, and B4, which is highway business. And they're regulated according to the scale and intensity of the permitted and conditional uses. Council will note, and the audience may note, that the B5 zoning district, which was previously reserved for adult entertainment uses, is no longer in effect, and that's why you won't see that listed here. But we didn't want to rename this new district B5 to avoid any confusion with that prior existing zoning district. The proposal before the council this evening is to create a new commercial zoning district, the B6 Interchange Regional Retail Zoning District. And this new district recognizes the regional draw created by national or international destination retailers and how requirements of such large projects like these tend to differ from the more traditional requirements of the city's zoning code, which are really designed more to regulate smaller clusters or groupings of local businesses. So many of the specific requirements of the zoning district only apply to destination retailers in excess of 250,000 square feet. These destination retailers draw from a much larger trade area than local businesses and thus may require greater visibility and freeway exposure to direct their customers, who in many cases are arriving from out of the local area or even the state to their premises in a safe and efficient manner. And as such, requirements and standards for signage are proposed to be different than the city's current standards, which would be ineffective and out of scale when applied to such large developments. Likewise, many of the city's landscaping requirements and percentages when applied to such a large development may be considered excessive. Now, national and international destination retailers in many cases also have very specific brand standards, which may include colors, materials, and architectural styles that may not align with the city's current code requirements. So while the proposed code changes acknowledge the unique needs and requirements of destination retailers, they are also crafted in such a manner that the development that will follow, which would not necessarily be the larger destination retailer in excess of 250,000 square feet, that type of supportive retail within the same zoning district would be held to standards which are more consistent with the city's traditional standards for architecture, design, signage, and landscaping. So with that in mind, and I can go through the actual zoning district for the public and or the council if they feel it's necessary or have specific questions, I will say that this is a public hearing, and anyone who has any questions or comments regarding the proposal to create section 17.0316 of the municipal code to create a new B6 Interchange Regional Retail Zoning District, to please fill out a comment form, hand that in to the city clerk, and when your name is called, proceed to the podium and proceed with your questions and or comments. This public hearing is now open.
I'll make 3 calls. Please confine your comments to the specific item on the agenda and the subject, which is the zoning of this regional retail district. I'm going to read or paraphrase one of the comments from someone that could not be here, but she asked that her comments be part of the record.
This is the text amendment.
Okay. Okay, let's take them in order. First up is Amanda Schmidt. Okay, you put 11. Okay, so these are all 12. So let's see. Jeremy Esnes. Ken Culver. Ann Lampy. It's a public hearing. You can. Gotta come up on a mic.
I'm also 12, but I have one thing that needs to be pointed out regarding 11. The name is Ann Lampy, 8436 South Howell Avenue. Doug, would you say that all of the permitted uses, conditional uses in this district are either commercial or residential?
Commercial, there are some residential uses which are allowable as a conditional use. Also allows office uses as permitted uses within this district.
Okay, how would you classify office use?
I'm not sure I understand your question. There is are you asking if there's a specific zoning that allows only office? There is.
Okay,
There's a B3 office and professional district.
okay,
But offices are also permitted in, not only in commercial zoning districts, but also manufacturing zoning districts as well.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Let's see here. So we went through those. Did I say Nicole Price?
She didn't,
12, okay. Kevin, you're 12? Lampy? And Nick Schmidt and Greg Schmidt? 12, okay, all right. Any other public comment? Anyone fill out a form? I don't have any other ones up here. So that would be second call. Forms are available in the back of the room. Third and final call. Is she wishing to speak? Okay. All right, third and final call. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on item 12. We'll move to discussion of 11, sorry. See, I'm confused now because everybody switched. Item 12 is a discussion of the ordinance number 2807, creating section 17.0316 of the municipal code to create a new B6 interchange regional retail zoning district. And it opened up for commission or committee comments. Any comments or questions?
I just got a
Alderman Verhaelen.
blanket question. What was the impetus behind creating the B6 when a lot of the same things are covered in a lot of the other districts already?
Got a question for Doug?
Yeah.
The B6 zoning district, as was stated in the staff report, really recognizes the special requirements of these international or national retailers that are these destination retailers, which may be over and above some of the standards that we have for our local zonings or, for instance, our highway zoning districts. As an example, given that the bulk or a good portion of the visitors are expected from outside the Oak Creek and in many cases outside the Milwaukee region, the signage requirements or the allowable signage in the B6 zoning district is greater than that, which would be allowable in any of our other commercial zoning districts.
Well, I don't see where this is really necessary because we already have huge signage on businesses that already exist along the freeway, and one would be American and Colders has a big sign already. So signage, I don't think was really the issue, but
Well, if I can maybe address that, I mean, our maximum allowable signage at this point in any of our zoning districts permitted by right is 25 feet tall.
and you don't think they could be accommodated by
So that the request is for larger than that.
Anything else?
No, I think my other questions go to when we discuss number 12.
Okay. Other questions from the council? Comments? Alderman Bekavich?
I guess I'll just bring you up. I mean, we did discuss this at planning, and part of it was the signage, because this is a unique retailer, a destination retailer coming in. And every time we do review a sign, we're basically making an exception one way or another. Really what this did was help the process through on these unique regional retailers, not only with the signs, but on the building itself. Just some of the things we have to look at in planning, and planning reviewed it, and they felt pretty comfortable with the recommendation. Leave it at that.
Okay. All right, so all the folks that filled out for 11, this is when you intended to speak?
It's actually 13.
Okay. All right, so if there's,
Just creating the ordinance.
I got what it is, but they indicated 12 when I asked them last time, so you're all indicating you want to speak to 13.
Yep.
Is that correct? All right. All right, if there's no other comments from the council, we need a motion on number 12.
Gail moved to approve ordinance 2807, creating section 17.0316 of the municipal code to create a new B6 interchange regional retail zoning district.
David will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Okay, so item 13 is a rezone request by Walden OC LLC, a Delaware LLC, to rezone the property located at 1830R West Drexel Avenue from P1 Park to B6 Interchange Regional Retail. Ready? Yeah.
Public hearing number 2 is to consider a request by Walden OC LLC, a Delaware LLC, to rezone the property located at 1830R West Drexel Avenue from P-1 Park to B6 Interchange Regional Retail. Applicant is Walden OC LLC, a Delaware LLC. Property owner is Walden OC LLC, a Delaware LLC. There follows the legal description. Date of notice is May 5th, 2016.
Doug?
Thank you again. As a bit of history, in 2015, the Plan Commission adopted a resolution and recommended council adoption of several amendments to the land use categories and map in the comprehensive plan for properties in the vicinity of Falk Park. And included in that amendment was a change to plan mixed use for the property at 1830R West Drexel Avenue, anticipating a future mixed use development on the land which is owned by Walden Oak Creek, which is Northwestern Mutual. As part of that, and as part of that tri-party exchange agreement, lands were exchanged between Milwaukee County, between the city, and between private landowners, which resulted in the addition of high-value woodlands to Falk Park, which also allowed for the transfer of 60 acres of farmland to Northwest Mutual, which is 1830 West Drexel Avenue, for future development. And in December 2015, the council did approve those amendments. We also have, these lands went through a lock-on conversion process, and we have the letters from the federal government and from the DNR acknowledging that these lands have been released from their lock-on restrictions. The applicant is now requesting a change in the zoning district to this new B6 Interchange Regional Retail District due to accommodate development that was anticipated during that land exchange and comprehensive plan amendment process. Now, the existing zoning in the area is diverse and includes P1, which includes the original Falk Park, as well as some of the lands which were zoned to P1 as a result of the land exchange, I-1 institutional for the new Forest Ridge Elementary School, as well as residential districts to the south of this, which are a mix of RS1, 2, and 3. I-94 creates the eastern property line across which lies additional business, residential, institutional, and manufacturing zoning districts. Staff does feel that this unique blend of districts and the future mixed uses allowable under the B6 zoning district are appropriate for the area and does support the requested zoning change. The Plan Commission did review the requested rezoning of this property at their meeting of May 10th and also recommended to the council that the zoning be changed for this parcel. With that, again, this is a public hearing. Again, for those of you who have filled out a comment form, when your name is called, please approach the microphone, give your name and address, and proceed to address your comments or questions to the common council. If you did not fill out a form and still wish to speak, we do have those forms available in the back. And at this point, the public hearing is open.
Okay, I'll make 3 calls. I do have quite a stack, so please keep your comments brief and to the point. Indicate your yay or nay on what you think should happen, and then why you think that. I'm going to now read the comment appearance request form information sent in by Heather Stanek. She's at 1123 West Rosewood Trail. I'm going to paraphrase it because it's a long letter. She's a resident of Oak Creek. She has concerns regarding the placement of the possible IKEA. She's part of the future building committee for the new elementary school, Forge Ridge. At the time of the committee, we had been told the new surrounding the school would be residential. She's a parent who had children that would be going there. She felt quite comfortable with the fact that it would be in a friendly Oak Creek neighborhood. We hope all our neighborhoods are friendly. With a proposal to rezone this area, she feels she's been deceived, and she does not like the fact that the elementary school is located so close to the freeway development. Lives off 13th Street between Drexel and Putes. She's witnessed a police chase on the freeway. She's already, she calls it the heroin highway, I-94 from Milwaukee to Chicago. She says that's significant concern enough for the location of the elementary school, but inviting more people to that area for a shopping district will not only breed trouble. She believes that it's an improper placement of the development area. Is there any other place that it can go? Is the land near well, she mentioned some other businesses on the freeway. And then she says both are visible from the freeway, both away from an elementary school. Please consider the rezoning of this area and the safety of our children first. That's from Heather Stanek. Okay. I've got Jeremy Esnes. Come on up. Say your name and address for the record.
Jeremy Esnes. I live at 931 West Potomac Drive, and I am concerned with the IKEA in a relative location to the new Forest Ridge School.
Okay.
We invested tens of millions of dollars to build a new school for our kids, and now we're considering turn that into a retail area. I just don't understand the common sense in that. We wouldn't build an elementary school next to retail in the first place. Why would we allow retail to build next to our school? We just invested a lot of money in. I'm concerned about my kids' safety as well as other children, the traffic going in that area, as well as it's not going to end up being residential if you put that IKEA in. Who wants to build a house across from IKEA? I have concerns about the way it was presented to the public. Looking at maps, the school was cropped out in most pictures, so like it didn't exist. The homes to the south on Drexel Avenue were photoshopped out. They're green all of a sudden. Those homes don't exist apparently on that map. So I think that's part of the reason that more people aren't concerned because they don't see that. It was brought to my attention last week that this is actually going to be sharing a driveway with the school basically. Call it a road if you want. That has a driveway to the school. Then now every IKEA customer will drive past my kid's school to get to IKEA. Talking about millions of cars a year. I'm not against IKEA by any means, but in that place, in that entrance, in my opinion, is a very, very poor decision and not good for the city or our kids. I implore you not to put money ahead of our children's safety and education. And if it has to go there, I hope there's a different way to build a different entrance in there besides going past that school. I thank the council for their time, and thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Amanda Schmidt of Drexel Avenue. Name and address for the record.
Amanda Schmidt, 1830 West Drexel. Contrary to what some have heard or believe, we have not negotiated selling our property to Northwestern Mutual. I first want to clarify for everyone here that doesn't know, Mayor Scafidi, you can answer this. Walden LLC is indeed Northwestern Mutual, correct?
That's my understanding, correct? Yep.
So from the internet, reported in 2015, Northwestern Mutual had $230 billion in assets, $27 billion in revenues, and more than $1.5 trillion worth of life insurance protection. IKEA, according to Forbes' report in May of 2016, is worth $11.9 billion. I would like to assume that all the aldermen here tonight came without a predetermined vote, and that their vote is not being driven by the $230 billion Northwestern Mutual and the $11.9 billion IKEA. Alderman Guzikowski, are you aware that you represent approximately 100 children that will be attending the new Forest Ridge Elementary School?
I am.
And you are also a member of the Plan Commission.
I am.
What questions have you had asked and answered regarding the safety of these children potentially attending a brand new elementary school adjacent to this destinational retail establishment?
Questions I asked were about the the fencing going around the school, which was going to be done by the city at $25,000. The driveway or streets going into IKEA, it's going to be a 6-lane highway. It's going to be a wide street with sidewalks. So the safety there, in addition to the design that they've got the school set up for the parking for the buses, the drop-off is going to be in the parking lot. In addition to that, the times for the school and the times for IKEA aren't always on the same time frame. So I feel that there's a good balance there.
Okay, and I'm
I'm just
going
going to add just one little thing. This is a public comment area, so make your comments. The questions the alderman can write down, and then they'll answer them in their part.
I think it should be part of the public record
I
because
know you're
many
suggesting that,
people.
but I'm going to run the meeting, and that's how we're going to do it.
Okay, so then I will go to his comments on that. A child predator doesn't look for routines or doesn't look for hours of operation. They look for routines like recess and opportunities like the exposure. Okay, so I'm the same questions to Alderman Bukowitz because he has 200 students, and I will ask them a different time, or someone else can ask when they come up. The brand new Forest Ridge Elementary School with the one exit and one entrance, and that was already brought up. The 5 elementary schools in Oak Creek right now are tucked away safely into residential neighborhoods, protected not only by our public safety, but by a neighborhood watch system. Edgewood, although not in a specific neighborhood, has residential homes on east and north, and west is the high school, south is the baseball fields. In fact, this is the only place of business sharing Shepherd Avenue with Edgewood is the American Legion Post. So the traffic evaluation analysis for Drexel Corridor, have all of you analyzed that? The Oak Creek Police Department and Fire Department are unaware of the full impact of Drexel Town Square as how it will present to public safety and traffic. In the past year, 17 accidents have occurred on the Drexel off-ramp. One of those knocked a streetlight into Drexel Avenue, and these accidents are with established driving patterns. Make that 18 because at 6:04 tonight I took pictures of another one. We are aware that the homeless is also increasing a presence in our city since the county bus route came to Drexel Town Square. We're concerned about the Egyptian Coptic Church on the southeast corner of the expressway. They already deal with the level of persecution in other countries. They are an international concern, and bringing the amount of people that supposedly visit IKEA would only increase their exposure. The fact is that if there's a large problem at IKEA or the Forest Ridge Elementary, and with the one entrance and one exit, if that is blocked, the fire department has to bring a crash truck from the airport to gain access from the freeway. These are not safety measures that we need to talk about when we're talking about a brand new elementary school. Please reject this rezoning. Don't put our children in jeopardy. Oak Creek can do better. Let's be patient. IKEA is not appropriate for this area. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ann Lampe. One other thing about public comment, speak for yourself. Don't speak to what you think departments think or what you think other people think. That's hearsay. I'm interested in what you have to say about it. So I don't know what conversations you've had beyond what you're having here tonight. So speak to what you know.
My name is Ann Lampe, 8436 South Howell Avenue, Oak Creek. I attended the news conference regarding IKEA. I wanted to hear what Mayor Scafidi had to say without the spin cycle of the media. What I heard from him was a lot about how good this would be for Milwaukee, the county, and the region. I heard that his wife would be happy to have an IKEA so close. I heard him say how much Oak Creek has grown recently, although he stopped short of explaining that most of that growth is not helping the budget. What I didn't hear was how this would benefit Oak Creek, perhaps because it won't. I then exercised my rights by making several open records requests. My thanks to the city clerk for her help with this. My conclusion after reviewing many documents and talking with department heads impacted by this development is that we cannot afford this rezoning and the development resulting from it. It is obvious from the development agreement between IKEA and Oak Creek that this rezone request would not happen without the understanding that the creation of TID number 12 would follow. Under the terms of this agreement, the infrastructure costs are capped at $5,225,000, and IKEA receives a cash grant of $13 million over the 20-year life of the TID. The project plan for TID 12 estimates IKEA's total tax payments over these 20 years to be $13,432,052. $13 million will be refunded to them. This means that in the end, the taxes generated by the rest of this TID will pay off the infrastructure costs, not IKEA. It also means that over those 20 years, only $432,052 of IKEA's taxes come to the city as revenue in the form of a yearly payment to Oak Creek of $25,000 for administrative expenses.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. This is not a TIF discussion. This is a rezoning discussion.
If you were listening, Mayor, my first thing said, this
You asked how it was
rezone
gonna
request
benefit Oak
would not
Creek.
happen without that.
And I'm asking you to focus your comments on the
I am
rezone.
focusing on the rezoning.
Please
I am.
refocus the comments on the specifics
I am.
of this agenda item. Thank you.
Which frankly addresses the costs that affect the residents the least. Considering IKEA's financial position, this doesn't even rise to the level of change found in their couch cushions. It represents just over 3% of their tax liabilities. The school district will see nothing for 20 years. So how will this cost us? This rezoning and development, Right now, this vacant land costs us nothing. This rezoning and development will bring a great influx of traffic to the city. Even without the traffic study that should have been available before this meeting, anyone that has been heading south on 94 and exits at Drexel heading west can tell you that this road was not designed for that level of traffic. Apparently, since they're doing a 6-lane road into IKEA, correct? But a 4-lane road on Drexel? Any mitigation of that hazardous situation, such as adding a 3rd lane, will be paid for by us, not the development. The project costs are capped and already allocated to the work inside of it. As a point of information, the city of Oak Creek has $90,105,000 in debt, which is 60% of its debt limit. This does not include the loan for this project or whatever Oak Creek has to borrow to cover Drexel Town Square's deficit at the end of 2016. Without the yearly receipt of $3,125,000 in utility aid from the water and sewer utility, we would not be able to cover our yearly capital debt payments. As it stands, the capital reserve will decrease every year. Any new capital debt will accelerate that situation. In addition to any capital mitigation of these impacts, this includes any underestimation of project costs for this development. The rezoning and development would also impact daily operations of different departments in the city. Because it would be in a TID, we cannot capture the growth in the levy. This means that additional costs must be absorbed into the budget. To put it bluntly, there's no room for that. With the exception of the city administrator's budget, which has almost quadrupled since 2013, the city department budgets have had to remain mostly unchanged. Since 2013, the police budget has decreased. No new sworn officer positions have been added in 10 years. Of the suburbs in Milwaukee County, Oak Creek trades places with Wauwatosa for second, behind West Dallas in the number of police calls.
All right, you got to focus on the rezoning.
It is.
No, you're way off topic.
I am
I'm
not,
respectfully
because you
asking
need
to
to be able
focus
to
on the
afford
rezoning.
this.
I'll make one more request, and then I'll ask you to sit down. Please
Are you
focus.
afraid, Mayor
I'm not afraid
Scafidi,
of
are you
anything.
afraid for this to come
I
out?
want- we have a TIF
Are
discussion.
the people interested in knowing what this is going to cost you? Do you want to know this?
And there's a TIF
It's
public
a public
hearing next
hearing.
Tuesday.
It's a public hearing.
There's a TIF
You
public
need to
hearing
stop
next
it
Tuesday.
Before it gets to that, Mayor.
Last request or sit down. Focus your comments or sit down.
I am embarrassed by you, frankly.
You can be embarrassed all you want, Ann.
I am sure IKEA will expect the street to be plowed and salted, the median to be maintained, road repair to be done, and the streetlights to be on. They just don't think they should pay for it. I'm not the only one to express concern about our budget and the impact of this rezoning. In the current Acorn, the city administrator wrote, now, do you not want me to say what your city administrator said? He wrote it.
As long as it's directly related to the rezone of this property, that's what you can read. But I really want to hear your comments about the rezone and not everything else that you're talking about. Because there's a TIF public hearing next Tuesday where you can say all these things about the TIF. So focus.
Mayor, all of these,
I know you're going to say they're all related.
they are related.
I'm asking you,
They are related.
as a former alderperson, to please follow the rules of our public hearings and confine your comments to what it says on the agenda. That's all I'm asking you
And
to
as
do.
a former alderman, I would want to hear these things.
No, we still have to follow the rules. Wrap up, please.
I would have if you hadn't interrupted me 7 times.
I'm giving you the opportunity to wrap up.
Well, if you're not going to agree that the costs generated by this rezoning and this project impact the residents of the city of Oak Creek, then I won't say that. But I believe the citizens of Oak Creek believe that. And I encourage you to come next Tuesday to the Plan Commission public hearing regarding the TID, because there is much more you need to know. I will say this, one last thing, and I hate to have to say this, but it needs to be said. If you choose to go forward with this rezoning and push the TID problem down the road, the following needs to be said. Aldermen need to consider any appearance of conflict of interest with every vote they cast. To do otherwise reflects badly on them and the city. Alderman Gale,
Don't go there, Ann. I would
I'm
stop
going there.
right
Considering
now.
your
All right,
wife
Ann, I'm going to
works-
ask you to
You're
sit down.
out of line.
Sit down.
I ask you to recuse
Please sit
yourself.
down.
You have conflict of interest.
You know better than that.
That
It
is
is true.
You know better than
despicable.
that.
It is true.
Sit down. That is really out of
It
line.
is not out of line.
Next up is Ken Culver.
If I may, just before we
Jump in. Go
go
ahead.
to the next speaker, that public hearing before the planning commission next Tuesday is at 6:00 PM. So I just want to let you all know that, as opposed to council meetings typically start at 7.
Yes, sir. Name and address for the record. Go ahead, sir.
Ken Culver, 848 West Glen Crossing Court.
Please. Mr. Degner? No comments from the audience. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, I'll start off by imploring the council to vote against this rezoning. I'll explain why briefly, and I will follow up with one question. I was involved in a lot of the committee meetings with the school district where we were discussing the boundaries for the new elementary schools. Now, a lot of my peers are going to talk about the safety of the children. Their concerns are partially valid. I tend to agree with my alderman who, when we talk about, the overlapping of traffic patterns, it's not as big a concern for me. One of the items that came up heavily when we were talking about the boundaries for the new school was the FRAM load on the new school. Committee chose to give the new school a very high FRAM load compared to the rest of the school district based on the understanding that future development within the boundaries of the new school was going to be both residential and high-end. Now, I'm looking at that map, and I don't see anything that's going to attract high-end residential, and my concern is that going forward, those FRAM loads are going to maintain on that school, and that's going to limit that school's opportunity to enjoy some of the extracurricular opportunities that some of the other schools do. It's going to put a lot of load on that school's PTO. Now, I am glad that we do have a very good principal coming in, so that gives me some hope, but my concern is that long-term we'll end up with a Title I school, which will affect the school district as a whole, and of course, it will also impact property values within the boundaries of that elementary school. As a citizen represented by you all, and I depend on you guys for accurate information. In this case, I feel like I was misled because as recently as November, I was told that this school was going to be surrounded by houses, not by IKEA. I'm not prepared to rename our school's mascot to the flat packages or change the colors to blue and yellow. So I'm hoping that you guys can see where we're coming from on this and find a better place for this store and stick with what we were told. Now, the question that I'd like to leave you all with, and you can answer it whenever it's procedurally appropriate to do so, is when was it known, or when were the plans for IKEA coming in? When did those germinate? When did those start to take root? Because, as I said, we were told as recently as November that this was all going to be residential. So once again, I ask you to reject this motion, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Doug?
If you'd like me to address that.
Sure, if you
Actually,
want.
a couple of things. The first disclosure, the public disclosure, was at the press conference. Certainly there was knowledge as early as August, but that was not to be disclosed to the public because it was still under confidentiality purposes. The one thing I will say with respect to the 60 acres, that is the question of this evening's rezoning, is that that portion of that really was not shown as residential. That was always supposed to be some type of planned businesses. And there, what you may have referred to as being surrounded by residential is the additional properties that Northwestern Mutual and various forms owns in the area between I-94 and 27th Street, between Drexel Avenue and Rosslyn Avenue. There's roughly, and I think just shy of 120 acres. Much of that is still zoned residential and is shown as future residential on the land use map. So that is a correct statement. It just did not apply to the 60 acres. That's the question of tonight's public hearing.
And frankly, we're not responsible for someone making a comment outside of council that says it's all going to be residential, because I never made that comment. So, nor do I think any of the aldermen did. But thank you for that question. Nicole Price? Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm just going to read it. I do not agree with the building of the IKEA behind an elementary school due to safety concerns for the students, the traffic flow, and the TIF district. I do not think this is going to be good for the city of Oak Creek. Kevin Lampy. There's two people on this one. Are you both asking to speak next? Nick and Greg? Oh, Gigi, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Kevin Lampy, 8436 South Howell Avenue. I'm not real good at public speaking, but I'll give my best. The B6 zoning next to an interstate with a brand-new off-ramp, that makes sense. The current location that you're proposing for IKEA really makes sense, except that you just put a school there, and now you're rushing to rezone it to put regional retail there. That doesn't make sense. I don't think anybody here thinks that makes sense. And so, real briefly, I think what should happen is let the school go in there, let them get established, and wait on the rezoning for the regional retail while we figure out a better solution. There's been more than one person that said, you know what, the school is just in the wrong spot. Regional retail probably makes sense there, but not as it currently stands with the school there. So I would say put off the rezoning to this regional retail, especially because it's being driven by the other factors which you've argued about. That just hastens that bad situation between regional retail and the school. I guess I don't have any more to say except be here for the TIF district meeting. Boy, what a bad deal that's going to be for the city.
Thank you for your comments. I have Gigi Schmidt.
She couldn't be here tonight, so 7842 South 13th Street.
Welcome.
Gigi Schmidt. Okay. This is about the planning and development process that we have going on in Oak Creek. The kindest word I can use to describe the planning and development process in the city of Oak Creek is reactionary. Here are some of the examples. You don't like our sign requirements? We'll give you a variance. You want to put a drive-through in the town square, though it wasn't designed for one? We'll make it happen. You want to rezone the regional retail on a new road designed for less traffic than will occur? Have one entrance and run the traffic past a brand-new elementary school? Sure. In fact, we will refund 97% of your taxes over the next 20 years and promise that you will never have to pay for the extension to 27th Street or for any other necessary improvements caused by our presence. We'll just put that in the next, it's a TIF district, I don't want to talk about TIFs. Okay, because you know the next development will expect financial incentives as well. After all, that's how we do things. We, the real taxpayers, can't afford such development on those terms and dollars or quality of life. Thank you. Hey, if somebody else wants to go up, I'll use Nick after, or do you want me to use it now?
You're going to speak for Nick? That's not how it works.
Huh?
Nick is here?
Nick.
It's me.
Oh, you're Nick. Oh, so you're speaking for your wife and you?
Yes.
I would have told you just to speak for yourself.
Oh, no, it's too weird for my
So do you have something different to say than what you just said?
Yeah, I got something else.
Or are you just going to repeat it and that would be two votes?
I knew this wasn't going to work out
No.
right.
If you have to add something, add it. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go for Nick now. This is Nick, 7842 South 13th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
This has been one of the more confusing public hearings I've had to do in a while. Go ahead.
Okay, this is for the aldermen. All the aldermen here that are elected by taxpayers in the city of Oak Creek. I mean, it's not like the planning commission, you get appointed, and I have a little thing about the conflict of interest of some of the planning commission is on the common council. And that way, if you're elected, why do you want to be an alderman? That's what I like to know. I mean, you see these aldermen going on and off in the, here's another thing. I think the people in Oak Creek should read this paper, the Now. It gives a lot of details of what's going on. Okay, back to aldermen now. So you want to be an alderman because you think you can do something good for the community. You're all piped up, you're going to do all this kind of stuff. But once you get into this, Oak Creek right now is in a position that everything we do is big. It's not like, farmland or something anymore. It makes a big difference for the taxpayers in Oak Creek. Okay, so you get in these positions. All of a sudden it's like, wow, this is overwhelming. I don't know. Let's ask Joe. He's been here a while. Let's ask him what he wants to do on some of these agendas or something that's going on. But I think the aldermen should talk with their people in their districts. How many people, aldermen, on this agenda right now that we're talking about have talked to their people in their districts about what's going on over here?
I'm sure the alderman will respond to that. Bring it back to, to zoning.
One. Okay, so here's the thing. These are the people that pay your wages. These are the people that are here for a lifetime. A lot of you people might not want to be for re-election because it's over your head. But we have to live what decisions you make. So when we do this, make this decision right now, it should be individual, not Joe, what are you going to do? What are you thinking? Individual. Look at this. Don't rush into things, because it's for the people of Oak Creek. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do I have any other forums from people that wish to speak? Come on up. Barb Coons?
Yep.
Thanks. Address?
861 West, Barb Coons, 861 West Creekway Court.
Thank you.
I just would encourage those up there to vote down this decision. I'm speaking not only for myself and my kids who will be at Forest Ridge. I've made my opinion known to my aldermen, to the school. Mr. Seymour, some of your comments today about the 250,000 square foot, drawing from a large area, arriving from out of state, visitors from outside of the Oak Creek and Milwaukee region. This is not in a good location for our students, for the children. And to go to the comments of the person who spoke before me, I find it irresponsible that this decision is not coming from the citizens of Oak Creek. That's all I have to say.
Other forums? Come on up. I'm reasonable.
Jeremy Estes, 931 West Potomac. I just have one quick statement, and I obviously don't expect an answer because I understand you don't answer questions, but Alderman Guzikowski, you're my alderman. Does anybody on this council have a student attending that new school?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Does anyone on this council?
Anyone on the council have a student who will be attending Forest Ridge?
If you do, would you vote for it?
Elementary, and if you do, would you vote for it? Second call for public comment. Come on up. David Schlitt.
Hi, I'm David Schlitt, 3133 East James Drive. I have to admit, I came here very much in favor of the rezoning. I thought that the IKEA was just a really unique opportunity for the city. I know one person said here, don't rush into it, but my view is this is probably a once in a 20 or 30 year idea. I do agree, having had former students, I think the city's done a nice job in the past of figuring out ways to compromise. I understand people have concerns about the school, and as long as that could be amicably resolved, I just have to say I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Third and final call for the public hearing, item number 13. At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Move to item 14, which is consideration of ordinance number 2808, approving the rezoning the property at 1830 R West Drexel Avenue from P1 Park District to B6 Interchange Regional Retail District. It's in the second district. And now I'll open it up for comment from the Common Council. Alderman Bekavich.
I guess I'll start out because, for one, it sits in my district. Number two, I sit on planning. And number three, I did support this all the way through planning. And obviously, there's some opposition to this. I tried to take some notes on some questions that were asked of us. The one gentleman was up here and asked if we have talked to any constituents. And I know Steve raised his hand. I'll just answer it here. Yes, I've talked to a lot of constituents concerning IKEA and also the school. I've also had one of my residents come up who contacted me through email. Officially, I've had 3 people give me the thumbs down on IKEA, including one of the speakers here tonight. That's who's contacted me. My number is out there in the Acorn. I'm accessible. It's on my cards. My home phone's open. Email's open. That's what I've heard. I've had over 36 people contact me that this is a positive. Not to say it's not without its challenges with the road. Now, the road was called a driveway. I hardly think almost a 6-lane road with a boulevard is a driveway. That road was intended to serve the school to begin with, and it was not that size. Okay? Once it was apparent some development was coming in, the road was modified as well as the intersection to accommodate as safely as we could the children of that school. So that road, though, was only going to go and dead end at the school. Depending on how development progressed, different roads and things like that would spur out through the development, possibly out on another piece of Drexel or up to 27th. That's yet to be determined. The road we decided to put in through the TIF, and I don't want to open up that whole can of worms because we'll have that later, is to serve the business that's going in on the far north end. That business itself sits almost 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet from the school. It's almost a fifth of a mile from where it's going to be. And yes, we are going to put some money into this. We are investing, and the immediate payback to the taxpayers in the TIF is not there. Okay, and we're asked, what are we getting from this? Okay, because we've TIF'd out that one section, and it's really a pay-as-you-go type TIF based on the value of the property they put in. Eventually, students that are going to that school, we're talking middle school and what have you, our future residents are going to get a tax base. We are leveraging that regional property for future development. That's what we're getting. And when you say, why do we do this as aldermen? We do it to benefit the community in the best way we see possible. Okay? And that's building a tax base. And it's painful at times. And it's hard. Okay? And it doesn't always work, especially when it affects you and you have people you love and care about going in and out of that intersection. I get it. What we're doing this to build this community to be a better place to live in, to attract people and have people there. Some of the questions that were answered, there was a lot of doom and gloom on Heroin Highway and all this other stuff. We're not a community without our challenges. We get it. There's high traffic volumes. We have to deal with it. We try to do our best with traffic analysis. We try to get this in. As far as predators, unfortunately, it's part of our society. I don't think there's a written rule for predators that they only go to B4 districts or B6 districts. I think they will take advantage of anybody in any neighborhood, whether it's tucked in Cedar Hills, Deerfield, Carrollton. Unfortunately, that's just part of society. I don't think it has anything to do with the business district itself. As far as the land, a comment was made that right now it costs us nothing, which is true, and we get nothing out of it. So what we're doing is leveraging that property for our future generations of residents to really have something here, okay? And this can work. This mix can work. We have to plan it. We have to work together at it. And here's another thing. The city didn't plan to put the school there, throw the school district under. It was the school's choice to build the school there. Please, I have the floor. Again, it was their land. they acquired it in the land swap. And they felt that that would be a decent place for the school. Nobody ever said that was going to be entirely residential. And it's not to say that residential or mixed-use development couldn't happen if the developer comes along and wants that. So again, it's a matter of working together. And again, we're a community. It's for everybody's best benefit. Okay? Now, you obviously see it differently. Most of you here that came here obviously were against it. You asked us to keep an open mind. You also have to keep an open mind on this. That eventually there won't be just one road serving close to 200 acres there. Eventually there's going to be a couple of 2 or 3 ways into there. So other questions I have, or I'm trying to answer, zoning and variances. Now, we just don't hand out variances willy-nilly for signs, things like that. We try to work with area businesses to make it fit. The whole reason that our planning commission came to us with this B6 was specifically for buildings over 250 that fit this regional destination. And Mark's right, a lot of that's in our codes. It was really to streamline it, to make it fit, to cooperate with the local businesses in the local areas to make this all happen. As far as variances go, many of you have come in here looking for variances, and I can point out different places in the city where I think there's some inappropriate use of land. Take Drexel Avenue. We have 4 homes on 13th and Drexel between 10th. How they wound up there adjacent to a manufacturing zoning is beyond me. And I'm sure that was a variance before my time, but it happened. It kind of baffles me why that happened. I just don't know. You know, I look around at some of the things that have gone on in the city, and it went in. I can't answer why that variance happened, but again, is it, now you look at it, what's happening with the city as it grows up, it just doesn't fit. You know, Rawson Avenue is another very busy intersection, and I think if we could have a do-over, we may change a few things there. But again, we don't get that do-over. It's there, and we have to deal with what it is, and the city's evolving and changing. But again, we like to think it's for everybody's greatest good. And again, we're leveraging this for a greater tax base. And I know a lot of you don't agree with it, but the truth of the matter is, them coming in made all the land more valuable. The land at Drexel Town Square, the land going west, the land going south, everything gains because of that regional retailer coming in. Think about it. You're the only one in the state that has one. It helps. So hopefully I answered the questions. I'm sure I didn't please a lot of people here. But again, we believe, or at least I believe, I won't speak for my other members of the council, I believe I'm here trying to do the best I can for the community and grow a base for future residents that are here. And again, whether you're here 1 year or you're here 20 years, you are a resident, your voice is equal, and it carries no more weight if you're here 20 years or 1 year in my eyes. You're still a resident, and I'm still here to serve you, and I'm glad to take questions from you afterwards. Thanks.
There's no comments from the audience. Please sit down. Thank you. Alderman Krukowski.
Likewise, I took some notes based on comments that were made here tonight. And I guess the comment that irritated me most was the one about the conflict of interest, and then launching that Trident missile, so to speak, and then throwing down Alderman Gale. Because when it was said, I thought she was implying that, you know, everybody up here had some sort of conflict of interest. So I agree that comment was unjustified. With regards, I'm just going to go down my list, no particular order for all the comments that were made. With regards to police staffing, you know, we struggle with that all the time. The same thing with fire department, but you know, we do surveys, we do studies based on the size of the city and population, and you know, we do the best we can with regards to those reports. Police chase and heroin highway has absolutely no bearing on this matter because the interstate runs all the way to Green Bay. So does the heroin, comes from Chicago. They just don't stop in Oak Creek. And as far as knowing that this was going to be built and the comments that it was going to be residential back in November, I will say that back in November, I knew absolutely nothing about this because it was because of the confidentiality that was that things were being discussed. So if anybody made comments about it being residential, I didn't know anything about it. With regards to all the comments about building a school next to retail and all this and all that, it seems like everybody seems to have forgotten that we're building a 9th grade expansion to the high school, 9th grade campus, right on the corner of a state highway at Putes and Howell. Now, if you're just going to stand there and tell me that Drexel and 20th is busier than Putes and Howell, let's go out there and count cars. I have seen students from the high school crossing at the crosswalks, but I've also seen them crossing, through the community center parking lot into the shopping center straight across the highway. You can't tell me that isn't one dangerous thing to do. And then I've also seen them crossing Putes from the high school going down the, Mayhew Drive where they park their cars.
I'm gonna say this one more time. If you yell from the audience, you're gonna be removed, okay? I have sat in this chair for 4 years. We run a meeting respectfully. We don't yell from the audience. We don't make crazy claims. I'm gonna ask you guys to respond professionally like everybody up here does. You can disagree. That's great government. I'm not asking you to comment. You can disagree. It's great government when people do. It keeps us honest. But don't yell things from the crowd, please. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, they're teenagers with driver's licenses or they're 9th and 10th grade students. So what? Okay, you're still talking about the location of a school and the location of a business at 20th and Drexel and North on 20th, yet nobody made any comments about the danger of building a 9th grade campus on the corner of a state highway. With regards to child predators, my experience as a federal agent shows me that child predators don't hang out at certain middle schools that are near businesses. They'll go to any middle school. They'll go to city parks. Okay, they'll even go into libraries. So that was, there's no validity there. I understand that the school year is September to June during the day. So traffic is not going to, may not be an issue in the evening hours and weekends and during the time that school is off. Nobody talked about that. There's not going to be any school traffic in July. And then with regards to votes and why we took this job, my vote has never, ever been driven by money, and I hope I speak for everybody else. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we're going to make a vote. And you know what? We're paid to make votes on tough decisions, as the mayor has said often. And not everybody likes the votes that we cast. I had said this once before with regards to Chick-fil-A. I had one person say no to Chick-fil-A, and I had one person say, because one person said no, I should vote no to Chick-fil-A. Look at the totality of the circumstances, okay? We vote for what's best for the city. And I talk to a lot of people about everything on the agenda as best as I can. And I have not found one person that has said no to IKEA. I'm done. Thank you.
Alderman Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to concur with my colleagues. Much of the discussion has been covered, I think, very well. This has been actually kind of I think, a logical conclusion to a process that's gone on since really the kickoff of the expansion of the power plant really was the genesis of much of what we're actually witnessing here this evening. The fact that the revenues off the two new generators there were the catalyst, or the capital investment plan. The Drexel interchange was the catalyst for this project in Drexel Town Square, and much of the other things that we're actively working on in the city. And it's been an amazing process to be a part of it, an amazing process to watch as our incredible staff has dealt with the various projects and formats and considerations. And when this project came forward, came forward as a result of the tri-party land swap that occurred several years ago to take formerly significantly underutilized farmland and turn it into a significantly valuable commercial entity and commercial purpose. It's a logical conclusion, a logical extension of a process that's been going on for 7 years at least, and before my time when the original agreement with We Energies was negotiated back in the early 2000s. So from my standpoint, a B6 designation here, given its its specifics to the IKEA brand and other type of entities of that sort are a very logical conclusion to that whole process. And the B6 designation in particular on this particular property, given the fact that when the tri-party land deal was culminated, it was always assumed that would be commercially developed. The school district property was part of that particular land swap, so that was a reality from the get-go. And Northwestern Mutual's development plans have been what they have been in the past and will be in the future. So all that taken into account, I think the B6 zoning here is a very logical extension of what has been a long-term evolutionary process, and I fully support it.
Alderman Guzikowski.
Thank you. First of all, when this started coming about, we were talking about the conflict that would come to be the school versus IKEA. The first question I had when I heard about it was, what are we going to do about the school? And when we started talking about it, the discussion came about the roads and the infrastructure that was going to be put into place had kind of been designed with this in mind, because while we just found out about it late in the year, obviously others had known about it sooner. So work has been done to try to mitigate and make the best passage to and from IKEA and passing by the school. Now, that being said, the school has also the last design I saw, there's I think a school parking lot on the south side, is that ish? So that's where the buses would be technically going in and doing the drop off, not on the street itself. In addition, the school was going to be building a fence around there. Is that it?
Doug can respond to that.
Yeah, as part of the agreement, there is a sum of money set aside to assist the school in developing some fencing or screening along 20th Street, IKEA way.
I do not have any students that go to that school. My daughters are all graduated. I have 3 daughters that have since graduated. My wife does teach in the school district, and I do have neighbors, and I do have neighbors that are both for it and against it. But it's pretty much 75% in support. I do have family that will be going there, great nieces and nephews. So I do have, some skin in the game here. But I do support it, and I do support it for all the other reasons they brought up. I think as far as the number of streets or lanes, I should say, I'm going to leave that to whoever wants to discuss that later.
City Engineer Mike Simmons.
I think it's appropriate that I interject, because I heard twice about 6-lane roadway, and that's not what's being designed there. I can tell you that it's a 2-lane roadway, but it has adequate turn lanes for right-hand turns, left-hand turns. Coming out to Drexel Avenue, there are basically 5 lanes. So there's two coming in, 2 lefts coming out, and then a right and a straight ahead coming out. So yes, it gets wider where you need it at the intersection, and it funnels down as you get further to the north.
Thank you for the clarification.
Are you done, Alderman Guzikowski?
The only thing I was going to ask was, Doug, how long ago was it? 2000? I don't recall when a cobalt study was done last, and that
4 or 5 years ago.
2012.
4 years ago.
Would it be possible for you to just speak to that part that came up on the study?
Sure, and I guess I'll speak on behalf of the city administrator who's out this week, because in that was really a directive that came out of his office, but as part of the citizen satisfaction survey that was done at that point in time, which is being redone as we speak, and the results will come back before this the council, and I believe in the next meeting. They asked for kind of on comments. I mean, what would you like to see in the city? And I recall as part of that, the results they showed up as one of these diagrams where they use all the responses and they
Cloud
kind of
chart.
weight them according to the number of responses. And far and away, IKEA was the largest response to that question.
So, so IKEA is there. I think it's, again, just what's the best way to proceed with, the neighbors, so that's what we have to think about going forward.
Alderman Verhaelen.
I've just got a couple comments. I'm not on the same page as my colleagues up here, but first thing I'm going to say is I'm not against development. I'm not against IKEA or any other retail, industrial, or multifamily development that wants to come in Oak Creek. But I think in this case, the facts regarding IKEA are pretty self-evident. First of all is the impact to the school. I don't think there's anybody in this room that's going to deny there's going to be impact on that school. Second of all, the future traffic and mitigation things that the city will probably have to put in there to upgrade their streets, whether it's Drexel or something else along the lines of the interchange, maybe more street lights in the future, but that's going to all be added cost. And then the last thing, and like I said, all this stuff is pretty self-evident in regards to IKEA. I'm not going to go off and talk about, how it's going to affect other developments or what else it's going to maybe bring to town, because I'm not going to speculate after that. So it's right to what it's going to cost the city of Oak Creek to get in basically a low-end furniture retailer, $18 million. Pretty self-evident.
Finished? Okay. What's that? In a second after I speak. You get a few opportunities to have developments like IKEA and a company like IKEA come to a city. If you don't think it's significant, ask every leader of every city outside of Oak Creek what they think about this, and I think you'll get the same answer. If we didn't do this, they would probably go away and not come here, but they would probably also look aggressively to do it somewhere else. You get a chance to work with great partners. We always want to work with them. I think you heard the comments of this council, even a dissenter, handled professionally, calmly explaining why it made sense or doesn't make sense. That's how I think the council's done business, at least as long as I've been chair of it. So presented with IKEA in August of last year, I was excited about it because I understand the power of the brand and what that means to a city. Trust me, I hear from people that don't like growth, don't like buses, don't like anybody else coming to the city, would like to see the city look like 1974 when I moved here, 13,000 people. Although we still had traffic jams because Delco had 7,500 people going in and out of here every afternoon and shift change. So I get it. I'm not asking everyone to agree, but I will tell you that at these meetings, at these public hearings, the comments do not reflect what I'm hearing. I could sit here and read a stack of emails that say, we love IKEA, this is why we want them to be here, awesome job, thanks for bringing them here, and I could do it for about an hour. I got, I think, 3 emails, 2 related to traffic, 1 from former Alderperson Ann Lampe. That's the extent of the dissent I received on this issue. Yes, you did. So, for me, it's an easy decision. It's progress. It's moving forward. It's aligning ourselves with partners like IKEA, like Northwestern Mutual. Can't have better partners than that. First-class partners. The envy of cities around us and around Wisconsin and frankly around the Midwest. Rare opportunities. This is not a school issue. Schools are all over our city. But this isn't a school issue. This is a city issue. The school was made aware long ago. The school understands that schools can be located in areas that are heavier traffic, light traffic. Schools have issues in areas that have hardly any traffic, that they have traffic problems when school lets in and lets out. And that raises the anger of residents. So it's not a unique problem to a highway interchange. Frankly, the decision to build the interchange triggered much of what you're seeing now. I still support that decision. I think in the history of this city, that is probably one of the most important decisions that was made, because we would not be sitting here having a conversation about IKEA if we didn't do that several years back. The last thing I'll say, and I'll let Mr. Schmidt briefly make a point for you and not your wife. To suggest that we don't care about public safety is frankly embarrassing, because nobody, the council, myself, staff, care more about public safety than anybody else. We have tremendous staff. We have a Traffic and Safety Commission. We look at these issues all the time to make sure that people that are coming in and out of our city are safe. Bigger cities will have more traffic. That's just a way of life. It's a good thing when people want to move to Oak Creek. That's a good thing. It brings diversity, which I'm not afraid of. Makes the city stronger, makes the city better. Enriches the experience for all of us. It brings that. So the person who sent the email that said we don't want unwanted strangers in quotes, that's not the way we do business. And I wouldn't give that person the time of day, but it just irritated the hell out of me when I saw an email tied to this that really had undertones of things that I don't care for. Regardless, this is a good day and a good time for Oak Creek. IKEA is one of the most significant partners we could have brought to this city, and the overwhelming majority of people that live here are excited about it, because I heard from them. That's what I go with. It's not personal opinion, it's what I hear from the people that I represent, as all the aldermen up here do. It's not their personal opinions, it's what they hear from the people that elected them. And to a person, I think the people in their districts would tell them the same thing. Mr. Schmidt, briefly.
Ask you about the land swap. Who initiated that? The land swap.
The land swap?
Yeah.
It's my understanding the county wanted to acquire certain wetlands
Okay,
to
now
add to Falk
Northwest
Park.
Mutual, possibly.
No, it's my understanding the county wanted to acquire certain
Let's ask somebody
wetlands.
that, let's not yell out from the audience. Doug Seymour.
Certainly, if you'd like more information on the land swap, we do have a lot of information about that, and be happy to share that with you. It really was a means of identifying those areas which were currently inside of Falk Park, which may have been farmed and not actually used for park purposes. Identifying areas adjacent to Falk Park that were high-quality wetlands and woodlands, which weren't being preserved, and recognizing that there were opportunities out there for economic development on those lands which were not environmentally significant.
Briefly.
Oh, okay, real briefly. Who, does everybody know where IKEA is gonna be built? Who owns that property?
Do we have an image? It's roughly on the interstate. How many feet up from the actual Drexel Avenue exit?
Now, who owns that property?
He'll show you a picture. Any other questions?
Northwest Mutual owns it? Does Northwest Mutual
They
own
own the
it?
property, yes.
They own that property. Just to let you know, everybody, Northwest Mutual is there to make millions of dollars on this property right away, not waiting 20 years or later on and stuff. And another thing, does everybody know in Oak Creek how much land Northwest
All
Mutual
right, you're
owns?
making a
Okay,
speech now. Thank you. All right. Any other questions from the council or comments? Motion on number 14. Do you have a question that hasn't been asked already?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I believe you missed the point of most people's concerns here today. It has nothing to do with IKEA going to Oak Creek. I have no problem with that. It's the location and the access to it.
I think I addressed that in my
I don't think
in
you
my
did.
school
I feel you
comments.
didn't, respectfully, sir. All you commented was that it was great for the city to have IKEA in the city, which is great. I agree. But where it is and how you get there is a big concern, and you failed to address that, in my opinion, when you spoke.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
can
for your
promise you we will address it, and we are addressing it. Thanks for your comments. All right, motion on 14.
Considering changing the entrance, sir?
Motion on 14.
Davich will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2808, approving a rezoning of the property at 1830R West Drexel Avenue from P1 Park District to B6 Interchange Regional Retail District.
Gail will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
No.
Gale.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 15, it's a rezone request by HSI Oak Creek Partners LLC on behalf of Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, and Life Creek Church, Inc. to rezone and establish a planned unit development for the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue in the First District. City Clerk.
Public hearing number 3 is to consider a request by HSI Oak Creek Partners LLC on behalf of Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, and Life Creek Church, Inc. to rezone and establish a planned unit development for the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue. The applicant is HSI Oak Creek Partners LLC. Property owner, Mary Volker, Margaret Munson, and Life Creek Church, Inc. There follows the legal description. Date of notice is May 12, 2016.
Doug.
Thank you. In April of this year, the Commission recommended Common Council approval of the rezoning of these properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and the various properties on East Drexel Avenue from RS1 single family and I1 institutional to the RM1 multifamily residential plan unit development. It should be noted, as we noted before the Plan Commission as well, that the proposed zoning request would not affect the existing floodway or flood fringe district boundaries. Council will note that these properties were the subject of a comprehensive plan amendment approved in January of this year, and all the properties are currently in the process of being purchased by HSI Oak Creek Partners in anticipation of constructing a multifamily apartment community. Now, per the information submitted by the applicants, the development is proposed to include 20 two-story walk-up apartment buildings, of which 10 would contain 11 units, 4 would contain 15 units, and 6 would contain 20 units. A total of 290 units, which would be comprised of 16 studios, 108 one-bedrooms, and 14 one-bedrooms plus den, as well as 122 bedroom and 32 three-bedroom apartments. Parking in 224 garage stalls and 445 surface parking stalls, of which that would also be counted as the areas outside and behind the garage door. One 5,600 square foot clubhouse and in-ground pool on the southeast side of the proposed road. One 1,600 square foot gazebo on the southwest side of the proposed road that is integrated with walking trails along Drexel Avenue, and 2 stormwater retention areas which will be located outside of the floodplain area. Phase 1 of the development is proposed to contain 12 of those 20 apartment buildings, the northeast water retention area, the clubhouse and pool, gazebo, walking trails, roadways, and parking areas for the eastern portion of the development. Phase 2 would contain the remaining 8 apartment buildings, roadways, parking, and the northwest water retention area. The overall unit densities, which are 7.8 units for gross acre, calculated on the survey area, appear to be met in the proposal. However, again, the Plan Commission would be responsible for reviewing and ultimately approving detailed site, building, landscaping, lighting, architectural plans for the individual buildings within this development. There have been requests for departures from the zoning regulations as part of the PUD, which is how PUDs are structured. Specifically, the request is for a clubhouse or an accessory building that is a maximum of 30 feet in height, and the current code allows for accessory structures which are a maximum of 17 feet in height, as well as changes to the typical time of compliance provisions. The attached conditions and restrictions that the council has a copy of and are included as part of the public hearing packet were reviewed by the Plan Commission, and they, as well as the rezoning itself, were recommended for approval. This is a public hearing, and I would request that anyone has any questions or comments regarding the proposed rezoning of these properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue, again, excluding floodway and flood fringe, to RM1 multifamily residential planning and development, to please submit a comment form to the city clerk. And when your name is called, please approach the microphone, give your name and address, and proceed to address your questions and or comments to the Common Council. This public hearing is now open.
All right, I'll make 3 calls for public comment on item 15. This is, first up is Glenn McCoy. Name and address for the record.
I just got to pull out my notes.
What's that?
I'm just pulling out my little notes
Sure, no
that I got
problem.
here. Glenn McCoy, 7739 South Pennsylvania. We've kind of been through all this through the Planning Commission. You've heard it all before. When you have 5 neighbors going against $8 million over 10 years, it all kind of, we see it. We just saw what happened a little while ago, so I'm not going to go over that. I'm opposed to this, mostly because it was RS1. I was hoping that it would be residential building behind, but when you have a private company to do everything for you, $8 million is the way to go. My concern, I'm against it, is the traffic going out on what would be the east exit would probably be right across from Manitowoc Avenue, going on to Pennsylvania Avenue. 400 cars in the morning during rush hour and in the morning commute. I would ask, I don't want it built, and I'd ask for that road to be removed. I would also ask for the rezoning to include the West Drive, that's only a partial road, that it would meet up with the Leif Creek Church exit of their, to the exit of their parking lot. That was originally supposed to be a road, and that's why they put their exit there. I don't see why that road doesn't extend all the way through to alleviate the traffic going on in Pennsylvania. I see now that they've kind of remarketed the floodplain, and I did send Doug and also HSI flooding issues because of the drainage problem, because of Drexel Avenue is filled with the old Drexel Avenue, and that's been a problem for the last 20 years, and it's never been improved even after the Leif Creek Church purchased the property. That is all.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate it. Arden Degner. I'll make just a second call. Why don't you let Doug hand those out? Name and address for the record.
Arden Digner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. To address this planned unit development, the following must be provided in this unfortunate setting of apartments in this bowl surrounded by floodway and flood fringe. We object to splitting this development into phases to enable HSI to defer this gross plan to another entity. First requirement would be to escrow, to provide for sandbagging and repair of the retaining walls that are to be located in a decade. Every complex is protected by a retaining wall, or will the rising water levels in the apartment buildings caused by holes in the dike 10 years result in hundreds of calls to emergency? 2, escrow required to cover interior road repair a decade after construction. Examples, the subdivision north tenants begged the city 2 years ago to annex the streets in the first automatic district subdivision to restore and repair after they became impassable. Chicago Avenue Apartments also to repair the roads. 3, install automatic traffic control at the only 2 bottlenecked exits to reduce tenant road rage when hundreds of cars are occupying the 669 stalls egress. 4, escrow for the cost of deceleration and acceleration lanes shown on the plans on Pennsylvania and Drexel Avenues, as well as 4 lanes on Pennsylvania Avenue. Block traffic obtains on the 2 lanes of Pennsylvania Avenue. Must Oak Creek taxpayers again pay the upwards of $50 million a decade hence for expansion of Pennsylvania Avenue? And you understand what the difficulty is with all those homes that have to be removed. 5, install desalination equipment at the site of the 2 stormwater ponds to clear the runoff of ice melt that needs to be applied to 669 stalls roads, or winter storms and ice will make all roads impassable. Parking adjacent to the apartments along the access roads is hazardous, as the site slopes 40 feet. In each row of apartment, about 10 feet from one row of apartments without desalination equipment. So this is incomplete when the taxpayers are pushed to provide items that we are already over our head and cannot afford. This is a costly taxpayer expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Degner. Third and final call. Fill out a sheet. You're the best. Thank you. Christine Smith.
Christine Smith, 7739.
Christine, can you pick up your microphone?
Certainly.
You're tall.
Well, I hope so. I'm shrinking a little, but trying to keep it up. Christine Smith, 7739 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I just want to reiterate what my husband said, mainly about the traffic situation, and that back in 2002, I believe it was, or 2001, when the Life Creek Church went in, there was in fact supposed to be another road coming in and out of any development that was going to be built on this property, and it would be on that western edge that then would run into what is currently the driveway to the Life Creek Church. And that was sort of an agreement that was made because there was always a third road going in and out of here that was removed because it went right directly through the property where the Life Creek Church has been built. So that was sort of the compromise at that time. So I too would ask that be put back on the map to provide another entrance and exit out of there, because I do believe that this is a huge population for the size of this property. I don't know, if it's engineering or who it is that decides how big a property has to be for any given number of people, but given that I live right on the edge of it, it just seems like an inordinate amount of cars potentially going in and out of here next to my house. And, right now there's obviously no stop sign, or stop light rather, at the corner of Manitowoc and Pennsylvania. But I could certainly foresee the need for one in the future with all this going in and out. My other proposal would be potentially to make that road that comes out onto Pennsylvania Avenue some kind of an emergency-only road, so that it would be for emergency vehicles only, and it wouldn't be a direct way for people to come in and out all the time. Camelot north of us only has one entrance and exit in and out of it, and I believe Alderman Bukewicz, you had commented previously that was perfectly fine and it worked very well. So my main issue is the traffic, the drainage. I know that all of those things are going to be taken care of by engineering. There's ways around all of them. Above and beyond that, I do have to say that this just seems like the wrong place for this type of development. It was always slated to be residential homes, less homes, comments were made earlier about the fact that, you know, you drive around Oak Creek and you think to yourself, oh, how in the heck did that get there? There is no do-over here. This was meant to be residential houses, not apartment buildings. That was what all of us expected when we moved in. There are only 6 or 7 of us that live there. I believe if the vote was being made on what the people that are directly impacted by this development think, the vote would be no. Because all of us have come to every meeting and spoken about this and opposed it. Now, with that said, I can't deny that it's also, you know, on paper, it's a beautiful development. I would hate to see this go down the drain and something horrible worse go in there, but that's my point about the rezoning. There are no do-overs. If you rezone this to multifamily, there is no going back. If this falls through for some reason, it's multifamily, and any other developer can come in there with anything else, and it may not be anywhere near as good as this. So, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Unless anyone else comes forward, I will close the public hearing. And we'll move to item 16, which is consideration of ordinance number 2809, approving the rezoning of the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2200 and 2280 East Drexel Avenue, excluding, what's that FW? Floodway, and,
Flood
yeah,
fringe.
spelled out for me, flood fringe districts to RM1 PUD and multifamily residential planned unit development in the first district, and open it up to the council. Alderman Kirkowski, Alderman of the first district.
Again, I made some notes regarding comments, and I want to start off by saying that when we were talking about the change in the comprehensive map, I'm not going to repeat those comments that I read from my notes. But I will say that I only had an email address for one resident on Pennsylvania Avenue. Knowing that all this stuff was going to come up, I attempted to reach out to that individual and say, I want to talk to you and the residents about what's going on. And I've even seen that person in public and have been flat out ignored by this person. So I find it disappointing that I tried to reach out to the residents to try and to talk to them. But be that as it may, I guess I'm somewhat offended by the fact that this comment of 5 neighbors versus $8 million. And I look at the whole situation and I see that this is private property that is being sold by 3 entities to be developed in a way that the buyer wishes to try and do it. And all of the appropriate processes have been gone through with regards to changing the map of what we had hoped it was going to be, but the situation changes and subdivisions were not going to be built. So now we have somebody who wants to come in. And I'm thinking that if something happens and if it gets rezoned and it falls through, we've already gone from one rezone to another. There's nothing to say you can't go back to what it was if something nice comes through. But unless the situation has changed, there's no city money involved in this entire development. HSI is putting up all the money to make this development. And with regards to some of the things that Mr. Degner talked about, I appreciate you spending time and printing this out and letting us follow along when you read it. But the fact is, this development is going to be private roads. And the entire repair of those roads, the plowing of those roads, the maintenance of those roads, the streetlights, whatever, is all on private property. The city isn't going to do anything with regards, except to make sure that they follow all the rules and regulations of the city. And I think one last comment with regards to exiting the proposed exit on the Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, I know in the last meeting they talked about how the traffic studies that were done on Pennsylvania, and Doug can correct me if I'm wrong, but they were below the state standards with regards to doing any work on Pennsylvania Avenue as it sits right now. I mean, they broke it in half, and the northern half was way below what they thought, and the southern half was even worse, was even lower. But I'll say this in public because I said this before in private, that I'm not a traffic engineer. And I know this may or may not be the final solution, but I threw something out. Is that if that road coming out to Pennsylvania Avenue is built, for whatever reason, the suggestion was made emergency use only, and yes, Camelot only has, in Montana, there's only one way in and out from there. But my suggestion was traffic coming out has to turn right, traffic coming in, southbound on Pennsylvania has to turn right. There's no left turns going to be allowed into the complex on Pennsylvania Avenue. There's no left turns going to be allowed out of that complex onto Pennsylvania Avenue. So it's right in and right out. I thought maybe that might be something for them to look at. That would make sure that the traffic going northbound on Pennsylvania isn't affected by people trying to turn left into the complex. Again, just to briefly repeat what I said at the last meeting, I looked at this in its totality. I have talked to a lot of people with regards to this complex. I understand that the residents along Pennsylvania are opposed to this, but when it comes to what's good for the city and this area, it's either going to be a private prairie land for the residents along Pennsylvania Avenue and the church people, or it's going to be developed and generate income for the city. I mean, those are the two options we have here. And while the folks on Pennsylvania Avenue may not agree with my decision, and for one has decided not to talk to me anymore, I will make sure that we hold HSI to their promises with regards to their development. And if you recall, when the initial planning of this, I was opposed because of the density of it, and then HSI came back and addressed every concern that every resident had with regards to setbacks and density, and they accommodated everybody. The only issues that we still don't know is the traffic study on Pennsylvania and Drexel. But you don't know what that's going to be until the work is done. And if it's been done, I have not been given that. Okay, Mike is saying it hasn't been done. So they are working with the neighbors, they're working with the city, and they're going to try and build a first-class development. And like I said, I know the residents aren't happy, but they have tried to accommodate all of the concerns. And I think HSI is here, and if I'm wrong, to let me know. But again, I'm going to hold them to the promises they made. And if they don't hold true to their promises, then I'm going to be the first one barking. So I don't have anything else. Thank you.
I will just let you know, I think I said this at the last meeting, I've also had at least 3 meetings with Mayor Olson, Mayor Brooks from South Milwaukee on the subject of Pennsylvania Avenue. So we're starting to have those conversations. That roadway has to be improved, much like you see in the north section of Pennsylvania when it approaches College. So Alderman Gale, and then Alderman Bekavich, and then Alderman Verhaelen.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate Alderman Kokowski's comments. I think this is fairly straightforward. I mean, the developer here has been very responsive. Tony, we appreciate your efforts. You and your firm, I think, have been responsive not only to the city and staff of residents and taken into consideration some of their concerns. Given the status of that property, long tenured and vacant, and the fact that actually some of the landowners there have to be considered neighbors of these residents, have chosen to actually realize the value of their property, which is their right, and right as a property we hold dear in this country, that folks have that right to realize the value of their property as landowners. I think this is especially given the scope and the quality of the development, I think is a very appropriate use here, and I'm looking forward to the development.
Alderman Bekavich.
Great. I just want to comment on just a couple of things. It was brought up that I made the comment on Camelot that it was okay. My point was there is only one road in and out of there, and it's serving probably more than 400, I forget. Our assistant chief was here, and there's many homes in there. I guess my point was they don't all come out at once out of one entrance, although it may cause a problem. But it's an inefficient design. That subdivision was put in probably in the 70s. We no longer allow that, so we need the dual entrances, regardless of if there's 2 off Drexel, 2 off Pennsylvania, or 1 off each. So again, it's a design issue. We need 2 ways in and out for emergency vehicles, things of that nature. Again, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. It does impact 6 to 8 residents greatly with having this development go near their properties. And again, it's growth of the city, it's progress, but it benefits many. And again, we appreciate you coming here. You're at every meeting. We get that. But again, we have to weigh out the greater good all the way around. And as Alderman Gell just said, the people that also own that land also have a right to sell it and do as they wish and develop it. So I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to point out that, yes, I did say Camelot has one entrance in, but I didn't say it was okay. It's just the way it is. And unfortunately, we don't design subdivisions or complexes that way anymore. Thank you.
Doug, do you have something real quick, and then Alderman Verhaelen?
Yes, I did in response to some of the earlier comments and questions regarding, what happens if this doesn't get built, and the concern about, this, I've heard it said that, this is a nice development, and certainly in looking at the history of this, the changes that have been made have been, in trying to respond to some of those concerns, have been reflected in this latest development plan. If the development is not built, the time of compliance provisions of the conditional use permit, the conditions and restrictions as part of the PUD say that, first of all, that phase 1 of the PUD shall commence within 18 months of the date of adoption of this ordinance. If that doesn't happen, upon expiration of that permit, the zoning for the property, again, excluding floodway and flood fringe, will revert back to RS1 single-family residential and I1 institutional. It also says that upon expiration of the permit, the applicant shall reapply for PUD status prior to approval or recommencing work and construction for either phase of the development. So just an important distinction there. I mean, if this didn't go according to the general development plan that you're reviewing tonight, someone couldn't come in there and do an entirely different plan without going through this exact same process.
Alderman Verhaelen.
That's not the zoning question, though, Doug. The rezoning is in place, but they would have to come in to revise or change to a different plan if somebody come in. But we don't have to go through the whole rezoning and everything again because
it
the
would
rezoning is in
revert back
place.
to I1 and RS1.
No matter if somebody else would come in here in 6 months, they just have to come in with another plan to be approved. We'd not have to go through this rezoning again because the zoning can still be in place, correct?
If they don't develop according to this plan and this set of conditions and restrictions, they would have to go through the entire plan unit development process.
Hold on 1 second. Did he answer your question?
Yeah, but I'm.
Okay, we'll let Mark finish.
He can go ahead, Mario.
Okay.
Going back to the Life Creek Church, when they rezoned the top property, they were supposed to put a 3-story South Milwaukee apartment building on that property. At that meeting, you also said that it was supposed to go back to R1. It never went back to R1. So you said that last time. What we're saying is that you get one shot. You get one shot at the can, and you know that it's not going to go back, and it's only going to get worse after this. That's not that we want to happen.
Let me just respond to that.
Go ahead.
And
you can sit down, Glenn.
Without going into specifics, and we can review the record certainly on that. But the way that typically is set up is, and people will say that, it'll revert back. But unless there's a positive action by the Common Council to do that, it can't just magically revert back to a zoning district. By having this as part of the conditions and restrictions, the signed conditions and restrictions in there, this would, even without a proposal by the property owner to rezone it back, the city council, it would revert back to the original zoning.
Okay.
It's
back to Alderman
action
Verhaelen.
Okay. First of all, I don't fault HSI for bringing a plan forward, alternative plan to the zoning that was in the area here. And I do agree with the neighbors greatly on this issue where, this property was zoned residential according to the comprehensive plan. I sat in on a lot of the meetings when we did the comprehensive plan years ago, and the reason the comprehensive plan was adapted is because the city had a lot of properties that were spot zone, things that didn't fit together with neighboring developments and whatnot. That's why the city took it upon itself to do a comprehensive plan. Now we've reverted away on a comprehensive plan on a couple different issues, of late. This is one of them. I think part of the reason is the residential zoning right now. You probably couldn't do a residential development there at this time because it's not feasible. The numbers just aren't there to make it cash flow. And that being said, times do change. And you can see this all around the city of Oak Creek especially. There's not one new subdivision plat that's been proposed in the city here in probably the last 5 years since we had the market crash. And I think right now, and I don't know why it is, because Oak Creek is definitely growing, but if you go outside of the area here closer to the lake, you get into Muskego, New Berlin, west of here, they don't seem to have a problem with putting in subdivision plans. And I kind of tend to think that maybe to a certain extent, the city here may be missing the boat, and I think everyone on this council would like to see residential development. We don't want to see just apartments and multifamily, but seems to me that's what we're getting the bulk of here now. And I'd like to see us review some of our codes and do a little research as to see why some developers and others, really can't make things cash flow in Oak Creek, and what the reason is that for, or why is it? It's not that this land wasn't zoned for something for the people to make a profit on, just that with the residential zoning, they couldn't really get it sold for that use at this time. But again, we're looking at an issue here where some of the local streets and neighbors are really going to be adversely affected by the amount of traffic and the amount of things that are being put on the property. Although it looks like a real good fit on paper, some of the outlying issues and stuff I feel should be, further addressed before we really move forward with this. And again, I'm not against development, but when you have things that go in and it adversely affects the people and the neighborhoods that are there already, and there really isn't a short-term thing we can do to mitigate some of the circumstances we create, I think some of the things should be addressed and mitigated before we dive into these things. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions or comments? Motion on 16.
Kirkowski will make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2809, approving the rezoning of the properties at 7721 South Pennsylvania Avenue and 2100, 2200, and 2280 East Drexel Avenue, excluding FW floodway and FF flood fringe districts to RM1 PUD, multi-family residential planned unit development.
Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
No.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to take a brief, by brief I mean a couple minutes, bathroom break, rest, and we'll be right back. Mics are live.
It's early. It's only 9 o'clock.
Yeah. 5 a.m. wake-up call. Let's go. All right, I got all the aldermen. Where's Alderman Gale?
You sure you want to talk?
Okay, there's my dog, folks. All right, so Alderman Gale, take a seat. We'll be back in open session. We're going to juggle a few things. It's a long agenda. We'll be here all night, but some of you have some time pressure, so we'll respect that. So we just finished 16. I'm going to move to 20, which is a discussion of ordinance number 2811, repealing and recreating section 7.44 of the municipal code regarding limitation of dogs on occupied premises and increasing the total number of dogs allowed from 2 to 3. A little background. One of the residents came up to me recently. You don't have to get up. Asking about this issue. She did a tremendous amount of research. After she provided me this thick thing of research, which kind of talked about what's going on in the Milwaukee area, showed where different communities were at on the issue. I met with Karen Sparapani of MADAC, which is Milwaukee Area Domestic Animal Control, to see if many of the things that you said were true. She confirmed those. The essence of this is essentially an ask to increase our dog limit from 2 to 3 in respect to a lot of different reasons, but one is to reduce the number of dogs that go to shelters, which is a noble cause and something that I agree with. So we are going to open up the discussion. Did you fill out one of my... I'm going to let you speak since you brought it to my attention. So just name and address for the record. We'll let you go first.
My name's Karen Olson. I reside at 3583 East Northbrook Boulevard. And I just wanted to say thank you to Melissa for your help and to the mayor for your help with bringing this to Common Council. I just wanted to make a motion to change section 7.44.
Hey, that's our job.
Limitation of total of 2 dogs to limitation of 3 dogs. If this ordinance were to change, the following stipulations could be implemented. The resident must have a fenced-in yard. The resident cannot be a breeder. The resident cannot be a dog groomer. And the resident must be the owner of the dwelling, no renters. And before I ask for a show of hands, again, I just wanted to point out my daughter who does all of the volunteering at the shelter. We are just strictly looking to adopt a dog that has come from an unfortunate situation, neglect, abuse, and just show them love and care. And I would just ask for a show of hands who all is in favor of changing this ordinance to 3.
Record shows about half the crowd. Yeah, you should have taken that first issue.
Just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mrs. Olson. All right, I'm going to open it up to the council for their questions and comments. Alderman Bekavich.
I'll go first. We addressed this a few years back, and it really came down to the owner not taking care of the dog. I personally don't have a preference. I think this lady's suggestions were great, and I would greatly like to see those considered, especially with the renters, the fence. I forget the other points already, which made, but
no renters.
No renters.
No
They were all on
breeders.
target, and I'm pretty supportive of that. Again, just take care of the dogs. That's the bottom line. Nobody wants to see the dogs not taken care of, but if you are going to get the 3 dogs, make sure you care for the dogs and clean up behind them. My wife does not care for picking up other people's droppings. So, anyways, that's all I have to say on that one.
Okay, I missed just the school board president, Frank Carini, filled out his comment sheet, so come on up. Hey, wait till you get to the mic.
Frank Carini, 8620 South Stone Creek Drive. I just said I agree and support and couldn't be happier of these kids, what they're doing, and just tells you what an 8th grader can do, and couldn't be proud. So here is a support, and they're doing well, so that's it. So
It's funny, your daughter was that Meadowview? I was at a bunch of schools this week in Meadowview and was handing out popsicles, and she came up to me and she goes, "Where are we going on that dog issue?" It's like, Wow, that girl's organized. Not even like high mayor or any of that stuff. Where are we going on that dog issue? So I respect that. You're agenda driven. I like that. Alderman Gale.
I think, yeah, very valid suggestion in terms of inclusions in the ordinance. Unfortunately, the one we have in front of us doesn't include those, so Melissa will have to do some work or somehow incorporate these things, and I'm not sure all of them are actually legally doable at this point in time, but especially with the renters kind of thing.
Are you asking the city attorney to comment?
Well, we're going to need something because a lot of things were suggested that's not written on the staff report here, so.
Right. He's handed it off to you.
Just your opinion, how we should, if we should hold this, if we want to incorporate those into a future ordinance, a new ordinance, or amend it subsequently to adoption here, or what? But
I would say it's the decision of the council. If the direction is to take a closer look at revising this ordinance to provide for some of those provisions, I think that we had a quick list ticked off from Mrs. Olson. I heard regarding ownership versus renting, fencing was another. I would say that from my recollection of what our current municipal code states, I think that if those were parameters to be included in any ordinance, I would take another look at it to make sure that there isn't some overlap with other ordinances, at least for consistency. The ordinance before the council tonight is literally what is in our code, but for the increase from 2 dogs to 3 dogs. So if that is your decision to move forward, that's before you tonight, with none of the additional parameters that were suggested.
And I would, although I agree with your suggestions, I would suggest that the council just moves forward in the 2 to 3 and we revisit those as after they're examined for legal and otherwise. Because there's some things you propose in there that frankly, I don't know. So, anything else?
no, I just I support. I mean, I've done a lot of campaigning around the entire city, and I see many examples of folks who are very capable of handling 3 dogs, and make it a legal situation would be, I think, useful to a lot of folks.
I will make the request, as I do. The last time I talked about this, I think it was an alderman, that people that have dogs, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, or there's actually people in the city have 5 dogs, because I know because I've knocked on their doors, that you're respectful to your neighbors. Just because you have a dog that barks or a puppy that barks doesn't mean everybody else wants to hear it, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is what I hear when my 2 neighbors on both sides of me decide to go at it. So be respectful of that. Be polite, in any way that you interact with other people with your dogs. People don't want to be threatened by other people's dogs. I think you all get it. Dog owners understand. Most dog owners understand. I do support this, and I don't remember if I supported it last time or not, but I think it's an important thing. There's lots of dogs being destroyed in shelters, and that's unfortunate. So if this helps in any way towards that, I think it's a good thing. So my recommendation would be go forward from 2 to 3, and we can work on the rest, because there's other things that we can do, certainly with pet ownership. There's been questions about cats as well. Right now it's unlimited for cats, and I don't think that's probably the best situation either. So, yes, Alderman Guzikowski, then Alderman Verhalen.
I guess I would ask that we consider looking at this as a whole and adding and discussing the cats. I think we should add something to incorporate it. Thoughts?
I agree, but I'd like to move forward on the 2 to 3 now.
Eric, can I?
Yes.
Very quickly, if we move forward on the 2 to 3 and we come back and revisit it, say as quick as 2 weeks, we could have a flood of people go and get the 3 dogs now, and then what do we do with them if we change it? So I would rather I do support this, but I'd rather get it all right once and come back and revisit a month later and say, okay, now we're going to put these restrictions on, and we got people, for example, renting a home with 3 dogs, and then a month later they can't do it. They're grandfathered in. Or whatever. You're in a situation where they turn around tomorrow and get another dog. So I'd rather get it right once and be done with it than revisit it.
Okay. Alderman Verhalen.
I think I would tend to agree. Getting back to the particular situation, I know you mentioned to myself and some of the other council members that you were looking to adopt another dog. I think not for you to recommend for you to break the law, but certainly you can get the feel of the council here that the direction we're going is looking at the 3 dog adoption of a 3-dog limit. I wouldn't feel that somebody come and demand that you
I
get
would
rid of
tread
the third
lightly.
dog before the ordinance says, I recommended you do that, but if it's a matter of a question of something that you're looking to do before the dog is destroyed, I would hope that, you can find a way to mitigate that. But that being said, I agree with Alderman Bukevich that, we should hit this thing one time and get it done the right way rather than
All right,
doing it half and coming back.
go ahead, City Attorney.
Just ask Mrs. Olson, perhaps, or if someone else had it, what were your other suggestions or parameters that we might be looking at, just so we're all of the same understanding?
Well, my thought was for the resident to have a fenced-in yard, obviously, just so that the
You
dog.
understand that there are literally thousands of homes that would have to install a fence.
I'm saying if not for 1 dog or 2, but if once you get to 3, that's when I spoke to many of you aldermen, and you were concerned that dogs would be roaming into other people's yards. So that's why I had
I think we
implemented
as
the
a city have
fence.
kind of discouraged, especially in certain neighborhoods.
That's a tricky one. What were the other ones?
That the resident cannot be a breeder, because obviously you would have more than 3 dogs at all times. And my
That's a
last one,
special license.
and then with the other one was a dog groomer, because they would have more than 3 dogs, probably at one time, waiting to get groomed. And my last one was that the resident must be an owner of the dwelling. And the reason I said that was because if a person is going to be a renter, more than likely they will not have renter's insurance. If they're a homeowner, they'll have homeowner's insurance. But hey, we all know the majority of people in Oak Creek that do have more than 3 dogs, they're not being honest about it. I'm just being honest, trying to be a role model for my kids, follow things the way that I should. I don't need someone phoning me in saying, hey, she's got 3 dogs, and then all of a sudden I got to give a dog up. I'm not putting my kids through that.
Yeah. I don't doubt your sincerity. If I'm listening to what the council is saying, they are in favor of your proposal, but you submitted a lot of additional ideas that are a lot more complicated. So I think we're going to ask you to be 2 weeks more patient.
Oh, sure.
I think it's a reasonable request.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. But again, I want to thank you for all the work you did on this and your staff. Because, I mean, you did the homework. You provided all the information. I'm not going to say it was better than what I usually get from the city attorney, but it was pretty detailed.
Wow.
No, it was very, very, very done.
Thank you.
We probably don't want to irritate the city attorney. No, it's probably a bad
Thank
idea.
you.
We've worked together just fine.
Yeah. All right. So,
We're going to hold. and-
motion. I need a motion to hold.
Gail will move to hold ordinance, consideration of ordinance 2811.
Kirkowski, a second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right. See you in 2 weeks. Okay. So here's where we're going next. 18. We're going to next. I'm just moving everything. Is that okay? Okay. I got a bunch of folks for that, and then we're going to go to licensing.
What happened to 17?
I'll come back to 17.
Okay.
So 18 is next, is a motion to select a polling place location for District 4. Thank you, folks.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, and I have a note from Alderman Toman on 18. I'm going to read that. Is that okay? Okay. I'm asking everybody's permission now. So his opinion is that item 18 on the council agenda recognizes security issues at our schools that trumps just about all election issues. As a council, we are compelled to move our current District 4 polling Deerfield location to an alternative building. These are Alderman Toman's words. I do not support the Civic Center site because of limited parking and the long distance location from District 4. I understand why the Legion Post, my first choice, is a more viable choice for an eventual East Middle School transfer, so that leaves me with a second choice, which I support. The National Guard Armory is the choice I would vote for tonight. It has everything voters need and is geographically closer than City Hall. Research was done by myself and city staff to keep voters and the integrity of the process inside the 4th District, but we had no other choices which made sense. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to read my statement into the record. And then I have, I guess I'm going to hand it off to City Clerk to talk a little bit about the research that you did with the Armory. That's my Alderman Tolman's choice, and then I'll open up to the council for their thoughts and comments.
That's correct. At the May 17th Common Council meeting, I have been directed to consider some alternate locations for the Deerfield Elementary polling place, which is District 4. There was some discussion, and I have for over 2 years researched a location within that district's physical boundaries to serve as a adequate polling location. You can't hear me? That's surprising. So within the physical limitations of District 4, it was very challenging to find another space. The other school locations would have the same issues, having students there and having children present on election days. I had met with Dr. Culver from the school district and also the mayor. Then we really had determined that the Civic Center might be a viable option. After presenting that to council on May 17th, they asked me to consider some other locations. I visited the locations, I did accessibility surveys on those, and I presented them with an analysis of 4 different locations. One was the National Guard Armory. I did meet with them. This is a space that's available via a facility rental contract. Parking is adequate. I kind of did a risk analysis, and they were rather low. I researched the American Legion as directed. American Legion, should I want to move the polling district out of Oak Creek East Middle School, is my best option. It is not capable of holding 2 different locations in the same location. So District 3 would be, make sense to move there in the future should I require it. If I were to move District 4 to American Legion, which is ideal, it would need to move again in the future, which is not a great option. I was asked to research the Oak Creek Municipal Court building. After speaking with the police chief and staff, court is held on Tuesdays, and those dates are set a year in advance. So this really wasn't a terrific option as well. The Civic Center, as Alderman Tillman had stated, and we recognized as well, parking would be an issue. And with library having after hours, longer hours in City Hall, parking and space and traffic in the building would not be ideal. I do agree with what Alderman Tillman has suggested in his letter to council, that the Armory is a very viable solution for District 4, and I would support that vote should it go that way.
Questions or comments from the council?
Here, just one.
Hold on one second. Alderman Kirkowski, then Alderman Gale.
I concur with the National Guard Armory.
Alderman Gale.
Just one quick thought. Given all District 4 is much like District 5, there's nearly no commercial viable sites here, and if it's imperative that we move it out of the school district building, you have very few alternatives. So I think this is a fine compromise solution.
Alderman Verhaelen?
For Catherine, do you think we could go do a possibly a double move at once, put 3 in the Armory and put 4 in the Legion? And then it's pretty much done. It's more convenient yet for District 4, and really it doesn't inconvenience District 3 at all.
So I did a MapQuest, and between District 4 and the Armory, I believe it was a 4.7 mile. If I were to move District 4 to American Legion, I think it was about a 3.9. There's about less than a half a mile distance. If I move Oak Creek East Middle School, if everyone's following me, to the Armory, they are now traveling outside their, well, not necessarily outside their district, but further. I suppose it just seemed logical to move East Middle School right across the street. And District 4 is going to have to travel outside their district regardless. District 6 currently already does that because they don't have a facility. I would consider a double move, but like I said, I did work very closely with Dr. Culver, superintendent, to try to make some modifications to the upcoming elections so that we do have a secure environment for the students. We'll take it from there.
All right.
Just on the subject of security and voting, that's probably an issue, even though I'm not responsible for the school, that I receive more emails about, way more than IKEA, about the security in school on voting days, specifically Deerfield. So it's a pretty hot button issue. Anybody else? So I need a motion on 19 that's going to spell out the changes. Actually, not 19, 18. Sorry.
Kirkowski will make a motion to select the National Guard Armory as a polling place for location for District 4.
David will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
All right, now we're jumping ahead to licensing. So I'm going to hand it off to Alderman Kirkowski. Just one question quickly for Melissa on all the different classes of liquor license, beer liquor. We do those individually? I'm asking for your direction on that.
I would suggest that unless there is some motion or reason to separate out one of the applications, that they could be taken in total.
Okay. All right, Alderman Kirkowski, item number 27.
Just a second, please. Thank you. 27, Kirkowski make a motion to grant an operator's license to Lisa Seafelt, 2408 East Grange Avenue, Cudahy.
Verhaelen, second. Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Is that everybody?
Did I miss Verhaelen? Verhaelen?
Aye. Good?
Sorry. Yep, I'm great.
Okay. Item 28.
Oh, and I forgot to mention there, Mr. Mayor, the License Committee met on May 18th, and the minutes are in the packet. Item 28, Kirkowski makes a motion to grant a transient merchant license to Ricky Dennis, 6210 South 51st Street, Greendale, selling home improvement products for Weather Pro exteriors.
Gale, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
29. Kirkowski makes a motion to deny a transient merchant license to Matthew Dennis, 11098 West Forest Home Avenue, Franklin, selling home improvement products for Weather Pro exteriors due to felony convictions and for being a habitual offender.
Gale, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
All right, item 30 has a memo from the police chief that he would like read into the record. Those are his comments. Members of the Common Council, this is dated June 2nd. I would like this letter read into the record regarding liquor license renewal of Boots Saloon and Grill. As you know, Boots Saloon and Grill is currently a nuisance property within the city of Oak Creek. It is the only business within the city with that designation. On August 3rd, 2015, at the Common Council meeting, the council voted to renew the license of Boots for the period of 7/1/2015 to 6/30/2016. At that time, Boots was considered a nuisance property. During that meeting, several aldermen offered comments to Boots regarding working with the neighbors and the city to try and resolve any issues. The management of Boots did take steps to put in soundproofing to try and mitigate the sound issues. One of the things that was promised by Boots was that they would also put in a soundproof door. I did personally inspect the wall area and found that the soundproofing wall was put in. When I asked about the soundproof door, that was discussed. I was told it was on back order in quotes. It was disclosed at a license committee in 2016 that Boots never intended to install the door, and they considered that a suggestion. Either way, one of those statements is false. The door could not have been on back order and also just a suggestion. I would like to point out that the attorney representing Boots at the 2015 license committee meeting promised that if they did not follow through on everything that was promised, the business would not contest anything brought forward by the city. Since the renewal of the license for Boots on July 3rd, 2015, Boots has been cited 5 times for loud noise. The dates of those citations are November 15, 2015, February 7, 2016, February 13, 2016, March 19, 2016, and May 15, 2016. It should be noted that the May 15th, 2016 date came after the council meeting where Boots was in front of the council for a special event permit, which died for lack of a second. I would also like to inform the council that Boots did hold a Memorial Weekend party on May 28th. They brought everything inside and had 4 bands starting at 2 p.m. I am glad to report that the police department did not receive one complaint regarding the event. This does show me that Boots personnel do know how to keep the noise in check. By way of this letter, I'm respectfully requesting that the council deny the renewal of the liquor license for Boots Saloon and Grill as listed on the agenda for the meeting of June 7th, 2016. Signed, John Edwards, Chief of Police. And at this point, I'll open it up to council. Alderman Kirkowski.
I would like to just make a couple points with regards to the chief's letter. I will state that the soundproof door, while it was promised to be installed, they did all they could to make that happen. It was never a part of the entire plan for the wall. They promised that they would try and do it. They looked into it. It wouldn't work. That's why they don't have it. So there is never, ever been we're going to make the door a part of the wall issue. It was something they tried to do, much like the putting more rocks on top of the building. So
Just sorry to interrupt. Alderman Gale, can you take the meeting for a second?
Secondly, with regards to the calls to the police that the police have had out there, I know it's nice that the chief points out that there are 4 and now 5 times that they've been out there, but it says that they've been cited. I don't know if any of those have been adjudicated or not. City Attorney, are they still outstanding, or what's the situation with those?
I do not know the status of those citations.
Okay.
I'd have to check with the municipal court.
Okay, so all we know is that they've been cited 5 times. And I'd like to know how many times, and this is going to come from the police, in the calendar year, how many times have they been out there and not cited Boots for noise? Because let's just for example, let's say over the course of a year, because of the history of this issue, let's say the police got called 20 times. So in 1 year's time, if they got called 20 times, 15 times, and I know this is just an estimate or a guess, 15 times they weren't cited because there was no noise issue. And I says, well, this is a nuisance business. I have issues with the fact that the chief can perpetually call a business a nuisance and not have an end date. If neighbors are calling 20 times and 15 times they show up and there's no police action, when they are cited, the city bills Boots or any other establishment for the time that it takes for the officers to go out there and deal with this. Yet, if there's 15 times they don't go out there, they just show up and they leave. And that's still time that the police officers are spending at Boots or any other establishment dealing with an issue. We ain't sending letters to the neighbors saying, hey, look, this was not adjudicated and there's no problem here, so we're going to bill you now for the time, because I think nuisance at some point can go both ways. And I find it interesting the chief keeps harping on Boots, and yet we have a hotel on 13th Street that has been the subject of police activity for prostitution and drugs, yet he doesn't take the time to declare that a nuisance property when you've got families checking into the hotel and the Department of Corrections allows sex offenders to live there. I think that's a bigger problem than having noise coming out of a bar. But nothing is being done about the Red Roof Inn. So just to keep harping on the fact that this is a nuisance business with no end date in sight, I think is wrong. They've done a lot of work, they're trying, and this is not a police issue. This is an issue between neighbors and a business. And I don't give a darn I'm not saying, I don't say give a darn, I do. But it doesn't matter what the establishment does, it's never, ever, ever gonna make the neighbors happy. If they says, well, we want you to pave the parking lot to add more cars, well, then they would just find another reason because, well, there's not enough cars, you got to pave it again. That's maybe not a good analogy, but it's never going to end. And you got to find an end date with this, Chief. You got to bring this nuisance thing to an end and focus again on that hotel, because I think that's worse for the city than neighbors not liking a bar. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Alderman Guzikowski.
I appreciate your comments, Alderman Kurkowski. I just want to point out, I started working with Chris at Boots and the neighbors back in the end of 2014. The neighbors first contacted me on on 26th Street. And we sat down and talked about what their concerns were. After that, we then met with the police chief and the attorney for Boots at the time at the police department, and the city attorney was there. We went through our litany of concerns and came up with a plan of action. And so going forward, when you look back at what's gone on at Boots from when I started to where they're at now, they've made tremendous strides. So I'm really happy with when you look at the number of citations where they're at now. They're at, how many were given out? 5 so far is on here. When I look at the numbers that I've got that were given out, whether they were adjudicated, I don't know the total number from the previous year. It might have been something like 15 or 17 or something like that. So my point is that while the plan of action was put in place, so they were on notice. They knew, hey, this is what the expectations are. They started cleaning up on the outside as well. So I applaud Boots for the improvements that they've made. They put money into the soundproofing of the back wall. And that was the reason why I had voted in support of this license last year. The problem I have right now is just that, you know, when you look at the numbers, you still have this overlying issue with the neighbors, the people that have to live there every day. And it's always going to come down to the neighbors going against the business here, not going against, but trying to find the happy medium, a good balance. And the other issue is how, when you look back when this was rezoned, you know, from whatever it was to business, or, you know, right up against the houses here, I guess in hindsight, was that the best planning? I don't know, but it is what it is now. So now we need to figure out how to best they can, you know, live together. So I do know that, you know, we've heard the concerns from everyone on 26th Street as well. So we had our last meeting prior to the block party request, and everyone sat down and we talked. I thought it was a good meeting then. We'll continue to work going forward.
Okay. I got a couple of residents who wish to speak. Adam Stickle. Name and address for the record.
Adam Stickle, 9031 South 26th Street. This month marks 20 years of happily paying taxes in the city of Oak Creek for me. I'm not sure how Alderman's thesis on how he apparently dislikes what the chief is doing relates to what we're dealing with here, but they have gotten better. They've gotten 5 citations. Last one was 3 weeks before this event, which to me at one point, do we say, so next year when we come up and they have 7 or 8, if that's the case, do we still let them roll? We were all here, you gentlemen are here, you heard. I know some of you reluctantly agreed to give them their license last year because they were installing the magic wall. It just doesn't work. If I wanted to get up, and I could have called several other times, but it gets to a point where I don't want to do it anymore. It's laughable because I have a police officer in my house at 12:30 at night with 2 kids. Okay? And it's not always a good scene when your kids then are afraid because someone's pounding on the door not pounding on the door, but knocking on the door at 12:30 because they want to talk to me. And I've met the officers and I've gone outside and it's gotten quiet. And I said, you know what, just wait a minute. And the last one on whatever happened, May 15th, I believe, was exactly that. The officer went outside to 26th. I walked out to my patio and I walked out and looked and I said, tell me you can hear that now. And he says, yep, I'm going to go issue him a ticket. So, and I see where this is all going, and it's unfortunate that you really feel as a paying tax person, this doesn't matter what I'm saying. It doesn't. And I've heard some of the other things with some of the other big things and, you know, how expansion and all that matters. And yes, it's going to affect some of the people. I live right behind this place. I can't have my windows open in the summer. I can't. Okay, you all have heard Harleys, right? 1:30, 12:30 in the morning, those things start. You don't just start it and go. They're revving it constantly. It wakes me up constantly. Again, I ask any of you to come to my house Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. You can sit on the side of my bed at 12:30 to 2 when the place closes and let me know if I'm crazy calling all the time. It's just, and what's going to end up happening is I'm going to end up moving. And of course, my house was just assessed for more, I believe another $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Talking to my realtor friends, first question they're going to have when they bring someone through is, how does that place affect your house? And I have to tell them, well, they only got 5 citations this year, for noise. Last year, I believe it was 30, but they did put in a wall. But at summer, you just can't open your windows because people are constantly going and leaving. I have nothing against the people that own Boots or run Boots. And I don't know who made the decision. It's just in the wrong place. Again, I don't know who made that, who did it wrong. It's not their fault. It's in the wrong place. It just shouldn't be there. And it's unfortunate that, and we'll come here next year, and just going on past record, they'll probably have some citations again. And it's not because we call 15 or 20 times just to try to catch them. Okay? Because I have better things to do, hopefully sleeping at that time. And it's just hearing that, and then coming up here, I was deflated because I know where this is going, unfortunately. And the chief recommends, and yes, it is a nuisance property. And if that was my business, I would do everything I can. If it's not getting a ticket for 6 months, or if my license depended on it, I guarantee you I would be there every night, making sure I don't get 1 ticket. I would want to come to this meeting and say, I have 0 tickets. I did everything I could. But they're coming to you with 5. One was May 15th. Less than a month before this whole meeting in the licensing meeting. So if you think that they care, that they're not laughing at you guys, laughing at the chief, laughing at us as neighbors, you're wrong, because it's happening. It's constantly happening. And yes, they put a person out in front of my house at 10 o'clock at night wearing black shoes, black shirt and black pants. And I come home with my kids, and the kids say, Dad, why is that guy standing out there? I said, well, honey, he's making sure that they can't hear the noise from the bar that's behind the house. And then I have to go inside, and I have the kid tell me she can't sleep because there's a guy standing right outside her window. And this is what I live with on a daily basis. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're very busy. You guys know who goes in and out there. It's a busy place. And now that summer's there, the Harleys are there, and I hope all of you have heard them. It's brutal. Again, open invitation anytime. 12:30 to 2 o'clock, come and sit there and tell me any of you would want to live there. Because again, I guarantee if it was behind any of you, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be. And I had notes to go on and everything like that, but this is, it's sad, unfortunate, that paying 20 years of taxes, and the 16 years were great, but it just doesn't work out. So what do we give them next year? How many do they get next year when you gentlemen all sit up here and say, hey, they did a good job. They only got 4 because we're 1 down. That's still 4. And they are still a nuisance property. Regardless of what that is, there's 1 nuisance property in the city. And that's it. Have they contacted anybody on what to do to get out of that? I know we don't know what that is. The chief can say it. But if the chief says it's 6 months without a ticket, they wouldn't have done it. If he would have said it was 3 months, because I believe their first ticket was November, after the meeting in August. They wouldn't have done it. So whatever that is, they wouldn't have that opportunity. So again, obviously I vote for it not to be renewed for the sake of the neighbors and just the neighborhood. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Stephen Vieira.
Steve Vieira, 8981 South 26th Street. I'll keep it brief. To Alderman Kurkowski's comments, I'm not sure that was a fair statement about his hypothesis that we call 15 times and they only get 1 ticket. You can pull the police report. I have. They were called 60 times. They were given 25 tickets, multiple warnings.
Sir, we got 5 tickets,
Well,
not
this
20.
year and they got 5. I'm talking from 2013 on.
Oh, we're talking this year.
Okay, well, this year they got 5 tickets. I'll just say this. Sitting in my backyard Saturday night, a bar fight erupts at Boots at 9:45. Me and my 9-year-old son are sitting in the backyard. Fight erupts. Yes, officers were there quickly. I called the police. They beat my phone call. But it made my 9-year-old son run in the house crying. Sitting next to me, he was afraid he was going to be attacked. That's really no way to be treated as a neighbor. The chief said they found a way to control the noise. Just so you know, I wasn't even home the weekend of Memorial Day. They could have had the music 1,000 decibels loud. I wouldn't know. I wasn't there. So with that said, it's obvious. They know how to turn the music down. Either they don't care or they don't. They can't control their people to turn it down. I just assume them be there. I don't want anyone to lose their job. I know your sons work there. And, I don't want people that, this is their living. I work with small businesses every day. That's what my job is. But if you can't comply and not just be a nuisance property, you shouldn't be allowed to get your license again. It wasn't intended to be a place for band music. It was intended to be a restaurant. And you guys talked a lot about rezoning. Maybe it needs to be rezoned that it can't have that. So one last thing, and I'm going to butcher your name. I apologize. Alderman Berkevich, you mentioned about an anomaly with 4 houses on next to an industrial. According to the chief, and I'm no expert of zoning, this is the only property in the city of Oak Creek that abuts a business like this. And, it causes problems. And I understand they just can't pick up their business and move it down the road because it's not that simple. There's a landlord, there's a lease. But something needs to be done. If it's a suspension, something to put them in line. They need to be punished at least, if nothing else. So I ask you not to renew, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments. Council comments or questions?
Yep,
Alderman Kirkowski.
Just want to state that the last speaker said that my sons work at Boots, and yes, they do. And again, as I mentioned earlier at previous meetings, I get no financial gain from their employment, and I talked to the city attorney, and I have no conflict in voting or discussing this matter. Secondly, I don't appreciate Harleys and the loud noise they make driving down the freeway. I'm sitting at a traffic light and I can't listen to the radio because I got a stinking Harley next to me revving his engine. There's not a darn thing I can do about it. I mean, I see they got straight pipes and that's the way they choose to, their bikes. So I understand the frustration when Harley's in the parking lot, but that could be a problem anywhere. But I take note of the fact that you said something about Harleys. I also want to point out that, to my knowledge, that there has been no citations given to Boots with regards to any direct violation of the liquor license. There has been no persons cited for serving to underage people. There has been nothing along that which would directly affect the liquor license aspect of this request. As a matter of fact, although state law allows it, Boots and several other places in the city don't sell alcohol to minors when they're in the company of their parents, so they don't do that. But anyways, there's been no violations of liquor law issues with Boots. And lastly, this may or may not be germane to this issue, but I'm working with the city attorney, and I'd like everybody to take this into account. Working with the city attorney with regards to changing that noise ordinance with regards to human ear versus decibel meter, because a human ear, and I'm not trying to mitigate or excuse and give excuses for anything, but you could have 2 officers show up, and one could say I can't hear it, and one can say yes I can, and that's a human ear issue. That's a medical issue. I mean, I have hearing loss in one ear, so it's just the way it is. The concept is decibel meter, clear and concise reading, no human error to worry about. And we're working on that, and I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Alderman Bekavich.
I guess I'll weigh in on it. I know this has come before us a couple times before. I'm not intimate with the situation other than I know the neighbors have been in here a number of times, and I think the owner of Boots came in the last round through. It's been an ongoing problem. I guess they've made improvements. I haven't paid attention to where they were versus where they are now. I think it's a good testament that nothing happened here early in May for Memorial Day. Noise-wise, and ain't a lot of comfort. I'm not big on putting people out of business, but it's been going on for a long time, and maybe we have to look at it. But I think maybe if they get their license, you have to have an action plan as to ending the music at a certain amount of time. Motorcycles have to park to the west, whatever it might be, and then review this liquor license in a 6-month period and see if anything's gotten it better. And I don't know, I think we give them for a year. I may be out of line suggesting that. And then maybe have a cutoff and say, okay, you get another 5, 4, or whatever the number is, and you're done. You lost your license. I don't know if we can even do that, Melissa. Or is it we just give it to them and we look at it again in a year?
Alderman Bukavich, I mean, the bottom line is, I can read to you a section from the statute as it relates to any refusals by local authorities to renew licenses. But the gist of it is that in terms of what's before the council tonight, it's renew. It would be a motion to grant the renewal of the liquor license specifically as to this applicant and all the others on the agenda, if that's the case, or to hold the matter. The bottom line is that if there's a refusal to renew a license for whatever the reasons might be by statute, including violations of municipal regulations or Chapter 125 of the statutes, then prior to the time where we would bring it before council for renewal, which is actually right now, we would need to notify the licensee in writing of the intention not to renew the license and provide them with an opportunity for a hearing. So it is similar to a revocation or suspension of a similar license. We would then need to take the steps to proceed, as it were, on a complaint. There would be a hearing held and scheduled before a committee here, then of the city council, a quasi-judicial hearing, then to have the matter heard and allow the applicant to proceed as they choose as well regarding any allegations under a complaint.
So we gotta vote on it.
So to provide the options, to be clear, it would be to grant or to hold, and if the hold is with the direction to proceed with a non-renewal, then that is the direction that we would need to proceed on. So that piece of it would not be.
I guess I was looking for something more on the lines of, well, if you hold, they can't.
The license, if the matter is held, they can operate without a license until there is a quasi-judicial hearing, either for a non-renewal or revocation or a suspension. Given where we are at this time of the year, it's the non-renewal. It isn't mid-licensing year where it would be perhaps a suspension or a revocation issue.
I guess I was fishing for let them operate, but have a plan in place. And then specifically say to them, 3 strikes and you're out, or whatever the deal is. And
Well, Dan, they're currently under, as a habitual, there is provisions in the ordinance to challenge their license through that ordinance already, and they all could also be challenged through revocation process if we see saw fit through actions.
I get that, but, you know, to Steve's point, when does it end? Does it go on forever, the tickets? Are they on your record for 3 years, 5 years? And again, if you go 3 months, do you lose a violation?
Yeah, that's not clarified in our ordinance.
Let me add this real quick, if I may.
Hold on 1 second, city attorney.
I guess I would just parse out 2 things to advise the council. Just in general, this chronic nuisance issue that the police chief has determined, it's laid out in our code under section 11.105 in terms of a chronic nuisance. It's very specific, and it's regarding repeated violations and determinations. There's a due process for objecting, essentially, and it starts with the police chief to make a determination that there's been a nuisance activity, and then after a period of time, if there is an additional nuisance activity, then there's a determination for a notification that that business or entity is in danger of becoming a chronic nuisance. That has occurred. So I think that piece of it, just to advise you, is an independent track, so to speak. Not irrelevant, not relevant. I'm just saying that is the process under our code for as a chronic nuisance. The other piece, in terms of citations, it just depends on the timing, the frequency of the citations under that chronic nuisance, and that determination whether or not the police department would then bill for services because a business has been declared a chronic nuisance. I would also indicate that in terms of calls for service, if there is a complaint that is founded, then that entity would be billed for that call. So if there is a multitude of calls, whatever it might be, even if it were the business that called for assistance, that would not be something that would build and relate to the chronic nuisance. So if it's 60, if it's 15, if it's 5 calls, it's really germane to whether or not there is an additional nuisance activity occurring on the premises. So that's a separate issue, citation, and then additional billing for services. But here tonight, it is that issue just on the renewal of the license. And I would also suggest that there's been discussion to this point. If it were to go to a different level or potentially to a non-renewal, we're not here to judge the merits of any situation tonight. We would not conduct any type of quasi-judicial hearing. So my recommendation is to literally discuss comments related to the renewal or non-renewal before the council.
Go to Alderman Kukowski and then to Christopher Kempkin.
I want to point out that in the motion, it does state that issuance subject to payment of any fees and departmental approvals as listed. And if you look at the list of licensees, probably half of them have some sort of issue at inspection, sanitation, and inspection, police, sanitation, whatever. We're going to vote on whether or not we're going to give all of these people a license, and if the inspections don't get around to doing what they're supposed to do by July 1st, then I'm assuming they don't have a license as opposed to sanitarian. And with police, and if Chief Edwards decides not to deal with this and give his departmental approvals, then we have to go to the next step. So we're talking about this and all of these. And like I said, the sanitarian could very well not get to all of these by the time the licenses are expired, and then they're without a license just as well. So don't parcel it out.
Christopher Kempkin.
I just wanted to address some of the stuff that was in the chief's letter. The back door being done, it can be true that it was a suggestion and then it was on back order. Because it was a suggestion, we did want to go forward with that. It was on back order. It then came in and they realized they couldn't install it due to an alarm that was on that door that would have to come off. It just didn't fit the building in that door. That's why it didn't get done. So it is true that it was a suggestion and that it was on back order. The chief says no complaint on May 28th. I mean, it's the same level of noise that is any other Saturday night. And actually, we sat here in the last common council and you guys suggested that we didn't have it, or it was suggested that we didn't have it because if there was an incident that it would look bad on us coming forward in this liquor license meeting. So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like we pull off a good event, we're making sure that it's good, and then you say, oh, well, you could do that all the time. So it's not really fair to say both of those statements. Alderman Guzikowski, other aldermans, the chief, the neighbors have all agreed that things have been getting better. It is on a good track and we're constantly working. As Adam said, there is a guy in a black shirt standing out there every night. I mean, it's something we have to do to make sure that we're doing it right. I guess he said something else to the effect of, if it was him as the owner or manager of the business, that he would make sure that there were no noise complaints. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. Unfortunately, we can't always do that. We do it to our best of ability, and to us, we have it at a level that we think is good every night. We don't know what they can hear inside their home. I guess there's an open invitation to go inside his house. That's obviously not sent to us and not to the police, because every time the police come and talk to us, they say we could hear something out there, not really sure what it was, but I can also hear cars on 27th Street. I actually have a record of it that Officer Zarwicki and Lentz informed us of, that they could plainly hear traffic on 27th Street, and they're not sure what would warrant something that they can hear that in their house, and this is something that you should call for a ticket. This is actually referring to the most recent noise complaint. I do believe there does need to be a decibel level established. Like Alderman Kurkowski was saying, it is up to the human ear. I mean, I have another security guard out there with me, and he could say I can hear it, and I could say I don't hear anything. It's just the same with any police officer that's out there. There is an actual level, much like giving a speeding ticket using a radar gun or a car exhaust that's too loud using a decibel meter. Then it's more not as I forget the word. It can't be varied person to person. The 5 noise complaints that we have had in the past, you can sit here and say they've had 5, but at the same time, we believe that they're unjustified. They have not been adjudicated, and of the ones that we have gotten complaints for, we have been found guilty of 1. Stephen mentioned a fight Saturday. It was in front of the building. It's a couple of brothers who were getting into it over a sister-in-law, something to that effect. We were there to break it up. We're not going to let them just beat each other up. I mean, it's not like Boots had anything to do with starting that fight. That fight could happen at a restaurant. It could happen at a Walmart. It could happen at an Applebee's, as we were talking about before. And then also just the comments about thinking that we can turn it up or down on command are just untrue. Obviously, we work with our sound guys for the bands, the DJs, whoever it might be on that night, and we have it at a level that we think is acceptable or we're not done working. I mean, there's a break for the band. I go back out there and check, make sure nothing changed. We're out there several times, and at some point, we have no idea what we can get a ticket for. Other than that, I don't really have anything.
Okay, thank you. So much like the first item, we have a situation where we have people that are not happy with us for specific reasons, and we have a business that I think thousands of people would say is a great business in the city of Oak Creek. I ate there Friday or Saturday night, had a great dinner. It's been there long enough that people have an established like for the restaurant, and certainly I think it's one of the only music venues in this part of town, so it has popular that way. But we're faced with a group of residents who have legitimate concerns about the business, and frankly, I would be unhappy if I had to listen to my kids complain about noise and have them woken up most nights on most weekends. And fear is a big thing with kids, and you always got to really be careful about that, especially when you're talking about security and feelings of insecurity. So I think that's something we also have to address. But you're tasked with figuring out what you're going to do with their license. And as the city attorney said, it's a detailed process that we don't resolve in one fell swoop tonight. It's a multi-layered, difficult issue that we have to figure out. So I'm going to ask you, the 5 people that are here that are going to vote on it, what do you want to do with the item? What's your action? What's your motion? And we're going to have to figure things out, both from the resident side and the business side. As Alderman McCabe said, I'm a very pro-business guy. And I think that's one of the things that mayors have to do. But you also have to respect the rights of the residents, and clearly there's some upset residents. So go ahead.
It's my position that I would make the motion to approve all of the licenses, and if any of them that are on the list don't meet the departmental approvals, then whatever step we have to take then, we take then. But I am opposed to parceling out one particular business, since departmental approvals have not been received, much like the 50 or others on the same list.
The alderman in the first has made a motion to approve all.
Well, I made comments, but I didn't really, in fact, make the actual motion. I thought other people were going to make comments.
Okay. I will take that note. Anyone else want to comment on his suggestion?
My sentiment at this point is the fact that we have a chronic nuisance ordinance on the books that I think would deal with events that would transpire after a renewal that I think are useful and appropriate and would be applicable in this situation. So I would favor approval, and with the ordinance already on the book to deal with the nuisance situation is all we need to move forward.
Go ahead.
I guess I would strongly suggest renewal of the license, but I would strongly recommend that you come to an agreement somewhere, some way, and I'm not saying you haven't tried, but you try to iron out any ongoing situations going. If it's having the cops come up with a decimal read and you pick a whatever it is, an OSHA level that's acceptable, I don't know. But again, I encourage the business to really work with the homeowners and vice versa, and try to coexist. Try to get along, people. Try to get along. Easy for me to say. I'm not living there, but again, I guess that would be my recommendation.
Yes, Mayor, sorry. I mean, this property, this parcel has more than one location for potential business on it. So I mean, this is a property that, unfortunately, when it was developed.
It does. I do think it's an anomaly.
Yeah, it
because
is.
It abuts a residential district. We probably have some places on Howell, although they're not set up uniquely as Boots with live music. So
Well, Boots, wasn't the original use, but when you have an establishment, it's a potential
correct,
use. Yeah.
because it's it's conditional use. But can't think of anybody else in the city either. Now that they mentioned.
Oh,
the point.
this is the only one in the city, according to the chief.
Okay, so I've heard from three of you. Anyone else want to weigh in before a motion's made? Go ahead, Alderman Verhaelen.
One quick comment. I guess Alderman Guzikowski is the one that's got to ultimately take the heat or whatever the decision is tonight. But I think that, progress is being made with the establishment here, and we're not to a point where we're supposed to be at, I don't think. Mr. Kavich here, I think, had a really good suggestion about motorcycle parking. If you guys could designate a spot on the western part of your property. During the nights, you have bans for motorcycle parking to keep it away from the houses. That would be another thing you could possibly do. But, I think moving from 20 violations down to 5, I think is real progress in a year's time. You did spend upwards of $10,000 to mitigate some of the problems inside the building. I know the neighbors aren't happy as of yet, but Alderman Guzikowski said he had a really good meeting here before we denied him the outside entertainment venue for later on this summer. So, I think that's a good start to get where everybody wants to end up here. And I think I realize you guys don't want to put up with it for maybe another year, but hopefully, these people are being put on notice every meeting like this. I mean, and I think everyone up here understands that, and they especially do, that they're right on the cusp of not having a business anymore. And I think that, they've been working. It's a slow process to get where we got to be, but I think a little bit more work on their part especially, I think we can get there, and I don't think it's going to take much more time, but they don't want to lose their business. I know you guys don't want to kick somebody out of the neighborhood. Deep down you want to see them succeed, and you want to be happy with them being there at the end of the day. But I would hope that you guys keep on working at it, and hopefully by the end of the summer, I would really hope that keep the decibels down inside there. Even if you got to get a decibel meter when the bands, before they crank up, tell them, hey, you got to keep the amps at a certain level, nothing louder than this, and keep the motorcycles on the other end of the parking lot before you get going on weekends, and I think that'll go a long way to solve the problem.
Okay, someone want to make a motion on 30?
But just real quick.
Go ahead.
What is the end game? So we have neighbors here that have the 5 citations here. They've not been adjudicated, I agree, but how are they going to be helped out in this motion?
I think Alderman Gale kind of laid it out in his comments. There's a process that can be followed with the licenses in place, that we, you know, if we have these concerns, we probably should be following through on that process. And if there's such a thing as a final warning, I think it's pretty clear this is the final warning. Yes. Go ahead.
Alderman Guzekowski, I would just, I'm somewhat reiterating, but the fact of it is, if it is consideration of granting en masse all of these renewals for licenses for this next 12-month licensing period, for any of the applicants, there is still the suspension or revocation process. I just pointed out as a matter of process, as a matter of course, for any business, for any applicant, there is that due process. So if it were such a situation for one of the licenses that you're considering tonight, there is always that statutory process in place as adopted by our municipal code.
Motion on 30?
Kirkowski will make a motion to grant renewal alcoholic beverage licenses for the period July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, with issuance subject to payment of any fees due and department approvals as listed.
Gale, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
No.
So I didn't want this to just, you guys have been very patient, so I wanted to have you introduce yourselves to the council, because one of the things that I'm really excited about is the other restaurants in town that are coming in, and you're going to be one of our newest that are opening this summer. So why don't you tell the folks who you are? And
Absolutely. My name is Sarah Baker. I am the operating partner of Pizza Man Restaurant Group, and we are super excited to be joining you in Oak Creek.
we're super excited to have you, so
Great.
I appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
And thanks.
Thanks for
Thank
sitting
you.
through that.
Yeah, thanks for, and welcome to Oak Creek. All right, moving to,
Still in licensing.
31.
Still here yet.
I'm still here. Okay. 31, Kirkowski make a motion to grant an operator's license to the 6 individual listed on the agenda. Favorable background reports were received.
Gale, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Gale.
I know, it's getting late.
We're changing names.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right, last one on licensing, 32.
Kirkowski will make a motion to grant amusement operator and amusement device licenses to the 4 businesses listed on the agenda.
Gale, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
So we go all the way back to 17.
Wow.
That got Becky up out of her
Very
seat
excited.
quickly.
Very excited.
Good evening. Becky Shermer, Human Resource Manager. Item 17 was discussed at the Personnel Committee prior to this meeting. They did make a motion to approve the revised policy regarding the supplemental merit compensation policy. There were just a few minor changes to the policy. One was that employees may only receive 1 supplemental merit compensation award within the calendar year. The other regarding nominations, the department head or whoever is nominating them must suggest a proposed merit compensation dollar amount, which is new. Otherwise, they were just putting a range on the form. And then lastly, the notification process. Employees will be notified by receiving a letter from myself, Human Resources Manager, instead of the previous policy was that they would be recognized publicly. No changes were made to the award categories or how someone is to receive an award. And then some minor changes also made to the form that the nomination person needs to submit, and that's with the proposed merit compensation award amount. And then also listing any witnesses or contacts the committee could follow up with if needed when they are looking at approving the award.
Anything else?
That's all I had. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
No questions, just a statement.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Becky, we appreciate your work here. The merit compensation program, I believe is significantly important and a goal of this council to really recognize and reward behavior and employees that do go over and above what's in their job description per se, do things that are good for the city, good for the citizenry. So I really support this program and really look for it to be even and spread it even further in recognizing outstanding behavior on our behalf for our employees.
Alderman Guzikowski.
I have just one quick question. So for the compensation, when we do evaluations with the employees, are we up to date with all the employees' evaluations and all? Is that all timely and up with all the departments?
They're actually due July 1st.
Okay.
So we're having a meeting with department heads this Thursday regarding that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Motion.
Kirkowski,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
No, Steve, you got it.
Kirkowski make a motion to concur with the Personnel Committee's recommendation regarding the revised supplemental merit compensation award administrative policy.
Go a second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
All right, one more jump ahead to item 26. The consideration of resolution number 11711-060716,
Sit here for a while longer, can you?
authorizing the expenditure of up to $60,000 to reimburse the Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District for remediation of impacted soils found on the secondary school site at 8640 South Hull Avenue, and to allocate up to $35,000 of additional capital improvement funds, project number 15002 in the 3rd District. Who's going to speak to that one?
What'd you get yourself into, Mike?
Doug, I like the way you deferred that microphone over there. That's pretty good.
I think that's almost
How about some background?
it's fairly straightforward.
It is.
Painfully aware.
Related to some contaminated soils that were found on the high school expansion site at Putin Hall, the former City Hall site. Back when the land exchange took place, there was an agreement. In that agreement, there was a clause that stated that if any impacted soils are found on the site, that the city would be responsible for the costs to remediate the situation. So in March of this year, the school district notified the city that they did indeed verify that there were some impacted soils. These were at the northeast corner of Howell and Putes. Goes back to a old fuel tank that was buried there, that was found several years back when there was a DOT project. They removed the tank. The DOT actually closed the case, saying that any residual soils that were impacted were wholly contained in the road right of way. It turns out that was either not the case, or they did then move through the subsoils. The situation is such that where the school is going to put their detention ponds, that would be in that area. So basically, no choice but to have those soils removed. So there was money spent by the school district to find the limits of the soils. And then there, of course, is the forthcoming funds that need to be expended to excavate, properly landfill, and inspect that. And the estimate for that work is $60,000. And as staff met on that and reviewed the agreement, basically it was verified that yes, this does look to be a responsibility of the city.
Okay, thanks for that on the fly. Nice job. So we're honoring the terms of our agreement, refunding the school district's payment for the removal of those affected soils.
Correct.
Okay. Questions? Everybody cool with that motion?
David will make a motion to adopt.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize, Alderman Bukavich. I'm just looking at the resolution. To be clear, there's certainly an understanding that this remediation is occurring under the exchange agreement dated April 3rd of 2012. I just would suggest that the approval of the resolution would be with the additional language in the second whereas clause, indicating that the land exchange agreement requires the city to be responsible for remediation of any impacted soils found on the former City Hall site, consistent with Section 4.5 of the exchange agreement.
Noted. Just note that she said that.
Let me.
Yes, that is why I said it, just so you would read it. So,
Where was it again? Give it to me one more time.
4.5, yeah.
4.5? Oh, okay. No, that's
How
even
about
better.
that? All right.
And I'll just agree.
All right, read it for the alderman.
It would be approval of resolution number 11711060716, authorizing the expenditure of up to $60,000 to reimburse the Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District for remediation of impacted soils found on the secondary school site at 8640 South Howell Avenue, and to allocate up to $35,000 of additional capital improvement funds, with the notation in the second whereas clause of the resolution as follows. Whereas the land exchange agreement requires the city to be responsible for remediation of any impacted soils found on the former City Hall site, consistent with Section 4.5 of the exchange agreement.
Bukavich concurs with.
I'll second.
All right, so.
Moved by Bukavich, seconded by Gale. Motion. Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bukavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Abstain.
Gale.
Aye.
Yes, sir. Bathroom break. Thank you, my friends at the school district. All right. Going back to 19. 19 is a motion recommended by me to approve the city's participation in the Regional Transit Leadership Council as recommended by the mayor. I've been involved in transit for a few years. I think it's important that we understand that as we build our business climate, we have to think about people getting to work. And one of the ways we do that is to build a transit system that's based on real things like jobs and not just people riding around on buses. So this is an effort for me to participate, for Oak Creek to participate as a member of the Regional Transit Leadership Council to forward ideas that make sense both for the area and the region, but also for Oak Creek. So I'm asking the council to approve $1,500. It says $1,000 in the report as a platinum member of the group, which entitles us to membership, participation in active discussions, which I will attend. And if I can't attend, I'll put a designee to make sure that we're doing the right thing on transit as it relates to the businesses that are located here and for the residents that want to move to those businesses. So that's my ask. Happy to answer any questions if I can't answer them from the council. Come on up, Mr. Degner. I'll try to answer your question too.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm afraid this is going to have the same effect that I visited back in the 2000 era, where there was a regional transit authority to tax us for the railroad, and have called together and yes, we need railroads, we need this, but who can afford all the millions of dollars that requires to not only to upgrade the railroad that we had before, that I ridden on dozens of times, if not more. And additional to that, the ongoing cost of the maintenance of that kind of thing was going to be laid on the taxpayers in the Regional Transport Authority. And that's what I feel is happening right now with this streetcar in Milwaukee. That would be a wonderful thing to get the taxpayers. And that's what I'm afraid of, Mayor.
I hear you loud and clear. This has nothing to do with that. This is trying to participate in a discussion about transit that makes sense for our business and for our city, both for residents and the economic development. Alderman Gale.
Mayor, I appreciate your efforts in this regard. Obviously, transportation issues are going to be, especially with the investments we've made in housing and potential industrial development, are going to be important for us. I have participated in some of these discussions as well, and I surprisingly have some sympathy with Arden's argument about some of the thinking. We have to be wary about groupthink in this organization. They're obviously transportation advocates in a fairly organized manner. So, but you need to be in the room to have a voice in those discussions. And I would trust the mayor to be able to share the council's viewpoints on our potential investments and our advocacy for those transportation options by this $1,500. It strikes me as a modest amount of money to be able to be in the room and have some influence in that discussion.
And like other memberships, this is will be acted upon each year. We can go yay or nay based on the results of the participation. No other questions? A motion on 19.
Gail move to approve the city's participation in the Regional Transit Leadership Council as recommended by the mayor.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Havich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
All right, I'm requested to move item 23 up, which is community development. So that's consideration of ordinance number 2810, amending the comprehensive plan for the city of Oak Creek, affecting the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue and 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue in the first district. Doug?
Thank you. Kelly Gallagher of Self Storage Ventures is requesting that the planned land use category and map in the city's comprehensive plan for the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue, as well as 137 and 147 and 209 East College Avenue, be changed from their current designation of planned business to planned industrial in anticipation of a purchase for a self-storage facility. And typically, I'd be giving you the advice and that to note that this is a comprehensive land use change, comprehensive plan change, and really not particularly germane to talk about the details of a future development proposal. But I think that given the importance of what is being proposed there and the kind of the differentiation between what is typically associated with self-storage, I thought it was worth the brief investment and time to have Brian Randall just come and give you a brief presentation on what is actually being proposed there. And then after that, I'd be happy to engage in a brief discussion of the merits of whether we want to change the comprehensive plan or not for that. So, Brian, if you'd indulge us with a brief presentation, might be helpful.
Still here. Thought you'd call me last, but that'd be fine. Good evening, Attorney Brian Randall of Freebird Finnerty and St. John, 330 East Kilbourne Avenue of Milwaukee, here on behalf of Kelly Gallagher and Self Storage Ventures, as Doug indicated. My client is a developer and long-term hold owner of self-storage facilities, meaning doesn't just build them and then leave the community. He invests in these, and over the past 35 years, Kelly has built these projects in it's a total of 75 projects in 5 countries and on 2 continents. And Kelly could not be here this evening because he is overseas, but he was at Plan Commission last month, and I've been working with him for a number of months on this project and really taking a good look at what would work best for the community. I want to thank Doug and his staff for meeting with us, and I just want to highlight a few of the things I see Doug put up on the screens, the site plan. 3 challenges really with this site to highlight, again, recognizing that This is on the land use plan amendment, but some of the specifics are relevant. On that site, there's a big, I call it the donut hole in the middle, surrounded by green. That is a wetlands that currently measures, with our delineation a month and a half ago, of 44,688 square feet, just over 1 acre. The importance of that to point out is in 2008, it was 23,000 square feet and change. It is a growing wetlands each and every day, and that contributes to the challenge of the developability of this particular site, which, as you probably all know just from the addresses, but it is on the south east corner of College and Howell. The other challenge for developing the site, and it's shown on our site plan how we're working it into, is stormwater detention. And as any current project, as you're all aware of, it has to deal with stormwater management, and in this instance, on-site detention. And many people often think, well, there's a wetlands there, can't you just add to it, dump the stormwater there? And that is not allowable under the state wetlands codes, and the DNR doesn't allow that. So essentially, we have the donut hole, avoid the wetlands, plus dealing with where to put stormwater for any project, whether it's self-storage as we're presenting, or commercial or retail or what have you. So the stormwater management is a challenge to fit on this site that's, again, becoming smaller and smaller as you look it over. And then finally, State Highway 38, Howell Avenue, we've been working with Department of Transportation, which has jurisdiction over that, and they will not grant us a curb cut for the access onto Howell Avenue, which also would be a challenge for any other retail or commercial user. We are showing on that lower left-hand corner an emergency access for fire department or emergency medical personnel. So there is an access there. We're showing it as optional, and we believe DOT would allow that, but they've not granted us a full curb cut. So the site has some challenges, and the final challenge really is then how our project fits under the city's current comprehensive plan and zoning code apparatus. And that is a challenge that we've worked long and hard with staff on, and we appreciate it. It's in essence a conundrum. The comprehensive plan for the site is planned business under the land use plan designation, and the zoning is B4 Highway Business District. Self-storage is not allowed as a permitted or conditional use in that area. We are a self-storage project, and so the only home for that under the city zoning code is under the M1 Manufacturing District, which brings us here tonight on a request to amend the land use plan to then make it appropriate for that type of zoning to be planned industrial land use designation. We did look at a text amendment option with staff, and I know Plan Commission had significant discussion last month, and that's not the best fit either. So again, it's a conundrum, working hard with staff. The best approach we thought was to really look at what the plan designation would be. And I would point out that page 55 of the 2020 comprehensive plan, which talks about the planned industrial, which is what we're seeking, the category does include storage uses. It recognizes that, and it puts an emphasis on landscaping and design. So with that, I'd like to come back around. Doug, did you have the elevations in the project as well? Well, maybe I can pause here before you move. The landscaping, we're showing landscaping on the site plan, which would be an expectation I know the Plan Commission and the council would have. So we're trying to address that as part of the land use category. But then we also have some design details that I will just cover very briefly. We have a total of 8 buildings on the site, 2 of which are essentially 2-story buildings. The one on the corner is going to be 2-story in height, but it's really only a high ceiling use, 1-story, but that's going to have some of the enhanced design features from the masonry on the wainscot, textured wall panels, and vertical columns in the earth tone color palette, and that's shown on some of the graphics you have right here. So trying to give it a street presence, a presence up on the street, although we'll go back to the site plan in a moment. Alderman Verhalen, I noted your comment earlier this evening about maybe not wanting a building right up on that hard corner, and if you remember, we'll go back in a moment, that we do have that stormwater detention pond to kind of soften and bridge that gap of the street presence, but we're also bringing some nice height of the buildings to that street edge to give it that presence. We also have then farther east on the site, on the College Avenue side, where our main entrance is. That's a 2-story building, which is actual 2 stories of self-storage. That will be a heated and cooled building, and that's where the office will be. So that one's temperature controlled, and that's where the office will be. The other 6 buildings extend into the site. They're single story, and those are what would be the more conventional self-storage type that you might be thinking of. But again, the design, the color palette, the ultimate construction is consistent to blend in, and they're back in on the site. And with staff putting a strong emphasis on not having any doors facing the public rights of way, and I think Alderman Kurkowski, we appreciated his time in looking these plans over and giving input. We don't have any of the doors, and some of that is shown in these images, none of the doors are facing the public rights of way. So we're really trying to bridge that gap with what the land use plan in the planned industrial calls for, with an emphasis on the landscaping and design. I'd be happy to answer any other questions, but we are on file with our conditional use and the rezoning materials for Plan Commission. Those are the types of details that will be forthcoming. But as Doug mentioned, we simply wanted to illustrate really what this is all about and the tough spot that we're in, given that we don't have a home under the zoning, but we think this is an appropriate use that will address a challenging site, and it'll bring tax base to the city of Oak Creek with a project on that corner. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but if not, I will.
I think you hit the big points at the end there. Challenging property adds to the tax base, actually designed to look appropriate for the site. So any other questions or comments from Alderman Kurkowski?
I just want to say that I know there were a few comments about do we want to have a facility like this coming south on Howell as being, what you're greeted when you enter Oak Creek. Anything done tastefully and nice will certainly present a good appearance as you come into Oak Creek there from the south. Like as it has already been stated, this wetlands is growing. So we have a developer who wants to use it, and if for some reason, this company wasn't here, in a couple of years, we'd have a totally undevelopable piece of property. I sure would like to see that the fact that this wetlands is really non-useful in the big scheme of things, and just fill it in and create a wetland somewhere else, but that's not going to be allowed. So, and food for thought, I tried looking for a storage area recently, the past couple weeks, and what I needed was nowhere to be found. It's something we need.
Real quickly, just a couple of comments. I was at Plan Commission a week ago when we went over this plan. I actually want to give a shout out to the Plan Commissioners. They really looked at this tightly. We debated this for a long time. As I said, we don't give out variances willy-nilly, nor do we change comprehensive plan. After much deliberation, looking at both ends of it, challenging property, the look of the building, it fits the site. The one thing that the Plan Commission did recommend is on that corner, which would be our southeast corner there, we get a major monument sign like "Welcome to Oak Creek," nicely landscaped. We encourage the applicant to work with the city on that. There was a lot of talk about should this be our gateway? We have various gateways in the city. Some are gas stations, some are nothing. We think it's an appropriate use. In the end, the commission did recommend it, and they talked about how things have failed here over 20 years. And I guess it's one of these things. Maybe the plan was wrong for 20 years, and that's why nothing worked. So, rather than amend it and allow these types of businesses and B4s all over the place, they just really affected this property. So I want to commend my fellow commissioners. I think they came up with the right decision, and I fully support it.
Alderman Guzikowski?
As we started at the Plan Commission, I was actually, I did a complete 180, so I was kind of opposed to it. And after hearing all the discussion at Plan Commission, I came all the way around. So I agree with Alderman Kawitz. It's a good fit here, and a good time to look at the zoning here. So I totally support.
I've got a question for you. Aldermember Halen, then Doug Seymour.
Yeah, this goes to my fellow aldermen who were on the Plan Commission, but was there any ever discussion at Plan Commission about, this goes to I guess, the frontal facades of the buildings being flipped so they're along Howell Avenue rather than along College, and putting their warehouses along College? Because in all essence, all of the traffic coming into Oak Creek, you look at this thing, you look at it at Howell Avenue versus On College, you have, you know, the airport facility, part of the airport facility, the wood guy is over there. There's what's left of a gas station, they're selling sheds and stuff there. So, I mean, and a lot of the traffic that does come into Oak Creek, it'll be coming possibly from the freeway down College, down Howell Avenue, and as well as down along the airport corridor on Howell Avenue, and then you're gonna see as you look, you see the back ends of the 4 warehouses there on the Hall Avenue side. And I was just wondering if there was any discussion about putting the main facades of the building along Hall Avenue and putting the warehouses more on the north side, just flipping it from what they got.
We did not discuss that. Again, the 2 major buildings were the focal points, and I don't know if it had to do with elevation or land use around that floodplain with setbacks or what have you, but no, we didn't discuss that.
Yeah, it was just something, food for thought, you know.
You know,
I thought it would look better
right.
with the building facades facing Hall rather than College.
I think that's certainly something that can be explored, but I suspect that given the depth to that wetland, that it's set up more effectively for this configuration. But I mean, if this progresses, we'd be happy to investigate that. One of the things that I just do want to bring up with the council, which we brought up for the plan commission, is, I mean, this is not, you know, there's a lot of decisions which are, you know, you can pretty much, you know, based on the merits of that, you can pretty much say this is the right decision, this is the wrong decision. I think this is really subject to a lot of interpretation, and I applaud the plan commission for deliberating with it to the extent that they did. The one thing I will note is that should the council choose to amend the comprehensive plan, this requires a level of trust. It really does, because you are changing a land use and without any guarantee at this point that this is the product that you'll be getting there. I mean, you could have a manufacturing zoning, and yes, you would have total control based on the uses that are allowed there under the M1 and the site plan approval process that the plan commission would go through. But, you know, it requires a level of trust that this is the project that will be ultimately developed there. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, you know, let you know that, and, you know, base your decision on what's the appropriate land use, not necessarily the merits of this proposal.
One last thing, Steve. One other thing we discussed at Plan Commission that really helped solidify this was the traffic impact. It's really neutral traffic going in and out of these places, and we're never going to get an entrance off State Highway 38 there. So this was a good deal versus trying to get a B4 business in there.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, Steve, just because I know I find it troubling when have people that when we have no votes with unexplained no votes. I have significant issues with this actually moving forward on the comp plan change here. Jerry regularly counsels us to make be forward thinking in terms of committing significant pieces of property in the city, because you're committing that property to a use decades into the future, whereas in fact, you know, it may not be obvious right now what could potentially go there. At some point, the opportunities do present themselves. I think this particular corner, it's not apparent now. We've had some proposals in the past, as recent as 4 or 5 years ago, that I think represent higher value add. I understand the difficulty with the wetland on the property. I understand the banks probably, or the owners pursuit of realizing the value of the property as quickly as possible. Jerry has said that ultimately someone along the line could decide there is a higher value add use, but given the significant level of infrastructure in place in this particular plan, likelihood of anything ever changing on this particular corner in the future is highly remote. And as Doug raised, there is some maybe slight issue, but you don't ultimately at this point know, in fact, that this plan will be followed if, in fact, this comp plan is changed at this point. So I really don't, I can't support at this point in time, and I'd prefer to hold out and realize a different vision for this particular property.
Okay. Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion on 23?
Kirkowski make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2810, amending the comprehensive plan for the city of Oak Creek affecting the properties at 6304 and 6340 South Howell Avenue and 137, 147, and 209 East College Avenue.
Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
No.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right, moving back to item 21, it's a motion to concur with the mayor's appointments as follows. Celebration Commission, 3-year term to expire April of 2019. Kim Jankowski on Palomino Drive. And Traffic and Safety Commission, 3-year term to expire 4 of 2019. Rudolph M. Ums on McGraw Drive. Any questions? For my clerk, I think this is for our clerk. I think this gets us up to full occupancy in all of our boards, committees, commissions.
I think we might have one on celebrations,
Oh,
but
my
yes,
goodness.
no, it's terrific. It's better that it's been in years.
God, we got close. And CDA.
Oh, right.
Wow, my work is never
CDA
done.
just happened.
All right, any questions? Otherwise, motion.
Gale will move to concur with the mayor's appointments as listed.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
22 is the vendor summary report in the amount of $436,422.43. Finance director is here to answer your many detailed questions about this. Alderman Gale.
Sorry.
Trying to interject some energy back into the room.
Yeah, Gale will move to approve the 2016 vendor summary report in the amount of $436,422.43. Much more manageable.
Guzekowski will second.
I heard a Guzekowski second. Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Bridget, could I ask you one question? Sorry.
Why don't you ask before we?
Because I couldn't remember what it was before. I'm going to have trouble finding it at the beginning. Oh, Flux Design. Item number 86 on the list of one items. That actually is money that's a pass-through from the Library Foundation, from what I understand.
37.
It's from the funding that's been a part of the building for the library,
Train.
For the train, right? But
and that's the last payment for the train. Train is awesome.
I'm good.
Did she satisfactorily answer your question? Oh, yeah. All right.
What?
The part that I look forward to at every council meeting is engineering report and resolution. So we're going to go to Mike Simmons for items 24 and 25. I'm going to let you talk about them. I'm not even going to read them because I'm tired. And normally I'd be in bed for a half hour already.
He's going to get crabby.
So go ahead, Mike. 24.
This is for the, related to the utilities water main replacement or extension project on 15th Avenue. Basically, if they were to do the work, restore the road on the disturbed area that they disturbed, it would basically be about half the road, and then a couple of patches transverse from there. Isn't that going well? We would be left with a road. We would be left with a road that's serviceable, but very patchy. So we approached them about contributing some money, doing the rest of the road. We'd have 1,100 feet of brand new road, a whole no useful life in front of it, rather than probably back in there 8-9 years from now and doing the road ourselves. So basically, we estimated it out. We figured that would be a contribution of about $35,000 on the city's part.
Okay. Can we get them to do the same thing on Forest Hill from Howell to Verdev? Same situation. Constant patching, horrible road.
Yeah, it would be a shared cost. We did the same thing 2 years ago on Pute's Road, frontage road.
I like the strategy because it gives the residents a better road at the end product, and it shows cooperation,
Mike,
frankly.
this has been a pet peeve of mine. I think we should be more aggressive in our ordinance, actually, when water utilities busy wrecking our roads.
Yep.
Should be much more responsible.
Endorsed.
Much more responsible for the remediation, full remediation of the roadway, not partial. Over in Chapel Hills, a significant impact on a roadway. We have to probably take a hard to look at that moving forward.
Ken is tossing the ball to Melissa for future work on an ordinance change.
Happy to do it.
All right. See how things get done? All right, so we need a motion on 24. Do you have more to say about it?
I'm good.
Okay.
Gail will move to, are we good? Mark?
No one's raising their hand.
I don't care, go ahead.
All right, Mark will move.
You can do it, you can do it on my behalf, that works.
Gail will move to approve resolution 11696-060716, authorizing a collaborative effort with the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility on the restoration of a segment of 15th Avenue under the utilities 15th Avenue Water Main Extension Project.
Verhaelen seconds.
3 hours ago, I was yelling at residents. All right.
Grab it, man. That's all.
Who seconded?
I did.
Alderman Verhaelen, roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right, 25.
As part of the Oakfield Village Edition Number 2 subdivision, as part of the authorization of that going forward and with the development agreement, part of the agreement was that the city would negotiate and purchase an outlot, and that's what you see on the graphic before you, labeled as Outlot 6. The plan for this is to create a detention pond that would mitigate some of the flow from the subdivision to the north, which is a very early phase that had no stormwater detention. It will also allow us to take care of kind of an interim drainage solution that's been out there for over 20 years and it's not very good. It had a part of a back pitch storm sewer. But at any rate, this is one part of a larger storm sewer project that I think council is aware of that we've been working on. But at any rate, with that approval, worked with the property owner, which was the developer, and got an appraisal on that outlot, which was $42,600. That is the proposed purchase price. The city would then also be on the hook for the closing costs, but the source of that funding would be from the stormwater fund.
Questions?
Mike, sorry. Can you remind me, is that road around that outlet, is that complete or is that to be completed or nothing there? I don't remember.
That road, it's my understanding that that road is not going to loop around. Yeah.
Isn't it like gravel, like a country road
It's currently
back there?
gravel, like a trail kind of rail?
There is, and I guess I'd have to investigate it again. I think we need to come up with some kind of a more permanent ending to those roadways, if it's a cul-de-sac end or what. But
That was my question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Anything else? City Attorney?
Just as a point of information, I can indicate to the council that we have the offer to purchase signed by the seller, subject to your approval.
Thanks for that. Motion?
Kirkowski make a motion to approve resolution number 11710-060716, acquiring outlot 6 of Oakfield Village Edition Number 2 subdivision for stormwater management purposes.
Gavich will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
And item 37. Man, you are patient. You have my express written consent to show up 2 hours late tomorrow morning. Oh, sorry. It was a nice gesture. So item 7 is a resolution 11715-060715 approving a memorandum of understanding by and between the city of Oak Creek and the city of South Milwaukee for interim health officers services. Ann?
Yes. You'll note there's a letter from the state stating that we do need to have a master's degree prepared interim health officer to maintain our level 3 status. We worked really hard to get that level 3 status, and if we don't have a qualified interim, we will lose that status and lose some funding, grant funding. I would be able to maintain a level 2 But like I said, we worked really hard at that. So I'd like you to consider adopting or approving the memorandum of
Hey, I yelled at a resident for speaking from the audience. Don't make me challenge you.
agreement. I do have to say, though, that with the memorandum of understanding is, I do all of the work. It's just that we need to have a name on paper.
Yep. It's an important thing to keep that level 3 status. You did work hard, and I know Judy was instrumental in that, as the staff was also. So we have a great relationship with South Milwaukee. A lot of discussions. Bridget?
Just for a note with the fiscal impact, and I talked with Ann, while $5,400 is essentially on the record for the change or potential change between a level 3 and a level 2, the MOU does in fact have a cost that's associated with it. It's a $55 an hour plus mileage cost. We would get some notice from South Milwaukee if we were to go over an estimated $500 a month. So depending on the length of how long this may be in place, we could potentially hit that 5,400. Which for me, I just kind of operate and break even. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Jackie and I had talked, and it looks like we probably would talk about an hour a week. And so we kind of planned for about 5 hours a month.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
As far as grant money for this year, it's around the $5,000 figure. Is that kind of a fixed figure from year to year, around the 5,000, or is it?
Grant funding can change year to year.
But I
So-
mean, in your experience, has it been pretty much in that area, or does it fluctuate quite a bit?
It can fluctuate quite a bit. There is talk at this point already is that with the preparedness funding, we may lose just even 10% because of the cuts that they're doing. So it varies every year.
I don't think we anticipate, Mark, going for any additional grants than what we have at this point. And this is also the first year that we've experienced that increase in grant funds from being a level 3 health department. So I don't, if you want to look at it percentages, I don't anticipate the percentages changing, especially from our aspect. Like Ann said, it's just from what the state determines they're going to allocate to.
Well, I'm looking at kind of the long-range plan here. Are we looking at actually hiring our own person down the road? Or are we looking at continuing the MOU with South Milwaukee, which gives us the same bang for the buck pretty much, but it mitigates the actual expense of having another employee here? So I'm just looking at which way we're looking at doing this down the road after the 180 days is over with. Because it is a 180-day window here.
I talked to the state in regards to that, and they're giving us 180 days to figure out what to do. Whether the council had approved that we look into possible shared services, or whether we're going to hire another health officer at that point. The Board of Health has been working on that, and so until a determination or a recommendation is made, we have at least that 6-month window.
All right, keep us posted, I guess.
Yeah, keep us up to date on what's going on with that. Any other questions? Otherwise, motion on 37.
Kirkowski make a motion to adopt resolution number 11715-060715, approving a memorandum of understanding by and between the City of Oak Creek and the City of South Milwaukee for interim health officer services.
Give it just a second.
Roll call. Hold it for 1 minute. Just checking on some information. Yes.
It appears that the resolution number is actually 11715 -060716.
Okay.
Our city clerk pointed out that it should be 11715, not 11714, or excuse me, 11715, not as listed on the report.
Is the addendum correct?
I.
What's the correct number?
11715-060716. So just restating the motion.
Yep.
For the correct resolution number.
I'll restate the motion with the correct resolution number, 11715-060716.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Yeah, I did.
David, second? Okay, roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
All right, so check my work. Did I hit everything between the start and the closed session? Yep. All right, so item 33 is a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State statutes. Discuss the following. A, section 19.851E to discuss a proposed term sheet between the City of Oak Creek and Competitive Edge Software, Inc. for the redevelopment of the property at 7625 South Howell Avenue, First District. B, section 19.851E. Hold on one second. Ann, could you please let South Milwaukee know of the action on that item? Yes, thank you. Sorry. B is section 19.851E to discuss a land purchase agreement with the Waters Senior Living Holdings LLC for city-owned property located at 8,000 South Market Street in Drexeltown Square, Lot 2, which is 2.54 acres in the second district. Alderman Gale.
Gale will move to convene in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State statutes to discuss the following. A, section 19.85 sub 1 sub E to discuss a proposed term sheet between the City of Oak Creek and Competitive Edge Software, Inc. for the redevelopment of the property at 7625 South Howell Avenue. B, section 19.85 sub 1 sub E to discuss a land purchase agreement with the Waters Senior Living Holdings LLC for city-owned property located at 8,000 South Market Street in Drexeltown Square.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen. Gale.
Aye.
Now convene in the closed session. We'll come back in open session after when we return.
Gale moves to reconvene in the open session.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale. Guzekowski.
Aye.
All right, item 35, it's a consideration of resolution number 11712-060716, approving a term sheet with Competitive Edge Software, Inc. for the redevelopment of the property at 7625 South Howell Avenue in the First District. Any comments or questions?
I'm ready to make a motion, but we have a, okay. Oh, I'm good?
Okay,
I
make
know
the motion.
I know I'm good. All right. Kirkowski make a motion to approve resolution number 11712-060716, approving a term sheet with Competitive Edge Software, Inc. for the redevelopment of the property at 7625 South Howell Avenue.
Bekavich will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Hey.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
And item 36 is consideration of resolution number 11714-060716, approving the land agreement with the Waters Senior Living Holdings LLC in the Second District. Any questions or comments? You have something? No? We'll let Alderman make the motion.
Bekavich will make a motion to adopt resolution number 11714-060716, approving the land agreement with the Waters Senior Living Holdings LLC. Oh, it is. So you want the recommendation?
As you said, with the insertion of
Land purchase agreement, as stated.
Second.
Second by Alderman Gale. Roll call.
Alderman Verhaelen.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
So 4 hours and 23 minutes later, we are going to accept the motion to adjourn.
Kirkowski will make a motion to adjourn if we must.
Gavich seconds.
Bekavich, second, roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Bekavich.
Aye.
Verhaelen.
Thank you for the spirited discussion and the good conversation. See you next Tuesday.